Have you ever wondered what the Earth looked like before the dinosaurs roamed? Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today's video is about the forgotten age of Earth. What happened before the dinosaurs? Let's begin our journey into ancient time. Long before the thunder of dinosaurs shook the forests, before the long-necked sauropods grazed beneath towering conifers and the sharp-edged predators prowled in the shadows, the Earth spun through an age few people remember. It was an age without the familiar creatures that most imagine when they think of prehistoric life, where the seas covered most of the planet and where the air itself was changing little by little to make life possible. The story begins in the dim, almost mysterious Cambrian period, more than 500 million years ago. The Earth's surface was quiet in some places, battered in others by storms that rolled endlessly over shallow seas. But beneath the water's surface, a miracle was underway. Life, which had once been confined to microscopic forms for billions of years, suddenly exploded in diversity. No one knows exactly why this happened, the so-called Cambrian explosion. But in what feels like the blink of an eye in geological terms, the oceans became crowded with creatures of incredible variety. Trilobites, with their armored bodies and segmented eyes, scuttled across the seafloor in vast numbers. Anomalocaris, a predator with grasping limbs and a ring-shaped mouth, darted through the water in search of prey. Worms, sponges, and early ancestors of modern animals filled every available niche. The seas shimmered with movement, as if the planet itself had taken a deep breath after an eternity of stillness. These early animals lived in a world that would feel alien to us in every way. The continents were small, scattered like stepping stones across the ocean, and they were almost barren. There were no trees, no grass, no flowers. The land was silent, except for the wind and the slow shifting of rock and sand. But slowly, something remarkable began to happen. Primitive plants, little more than green carpets of moss-like growths, began to creep out of the shallow waters and take hold on the damp shorelines. Their presence would begin to change the air itself, releasing oxygen and laying the groundwork for future life on land. It was a slow transformation, invisible to any eye at the time, but it would shape the destiny of the planet. As millions of years passed, the Cambrian gave way to the Ordovician period, and the world's oceans became even richer with life. Coral reefs began to appear for the first time, creating vast underwater cities that sheltered countless creatures. Nautiloid cephalopods, ancestors of the squid, ruled the seas, their long shells coiling in elegant spirals as they glided effortlessly through the water. Some grew to lengths of several meters, becoming the apex predators of their time. Yet even in this thriving oceanic world, danger was never far away. Massive storms could churn the seas into chaos, and beneath the waves, survival depended on constant adaptation. The land was still mostly empty, but not for long. Tiny arthropods, resembling primitive insects, began to scuttle across the shorelines, feeding on the growing mats of simple plants. It was the first small invasion of the continent's quiet, beginning to what would one day become a world teeming with terrestrial life. But this expansion was fragile. Around 440 million years ago, the Earth experienced one of its first great mass extinctions. Scientists believe that a sudden, severe ice age caused sea levels to drop, wiping out vast numbers of marine species. Coral reefs collapsed, trilobite populations plummeted, and the oceans grew eerily quiet once again. Yet, as it had so many times before, and would again in the future, life recovered. In the Silurian period that followed, the earth warmed, and the seas brimmed once more with strange and beautiful life. Jawed fish made their debut, their new weapon, giving them an edge in the eternal contest for survival. The first vascular plants with internal systems to carry water and nutrients took root on land, spreading farther from the coastlines. Their presence began to reshape the soil, trapping moisture and creating new habitats. Insects and scorpions, armored and adaptable, followed the plants inland. For the first time in Earth's history, life was making a determined foothold beyond the sea. By the time the Devonian period dawned, around 419 million years ago, the transformation of the world was undeniable. This was the so-called Age of Fishes, a time when rivers, lakes, and oceans were alive with an incredible diversity of species. Armored placoderms cruised the waters like living tanks, their bony plates glinting in the sunlight. Lobe-finned fish with strong, muscular fins began to venture into the shallows. Some of them, through slow and gradual change, developed the ability to breathe air, paving the way for the very first amphibians. On land, forests of giant ferns and early trees rose skyward, casting shadows over the damp ground. The air grew richer in oxygen, and the land began to hum with new life. Giant dragonflies took to the skies, their wings spanning more than 2 feet, while millipede-like creatures longer than a human leg moved silently through the undergrowth. It was during this time that another great shift occurred. The continents themselves were moving together, inch by inch, toward a single, massive supercontinent. This drifting of the Earth's crust, a process known as plate tectonics, would reshape the face of the planet. Mountain ranges rose, weather patterns shifted, and with them came new challenges for the life that had begun to flourish. But the Devonian would not last forever. Around 359 million years ago, another mass extinction struck, claiming many marine species, especially those in shallow waters. The reasons remain debated. Perhaps a drop in oxygen levels, perhaps global cooling, but the result was the same. Life once again faced a test of resilience. Those that survived entered the Carboniferous period, a time unlike any other in Earth's history. Vast, swampy forests covered much of the land, their thick vegetation creating a humid, oxygen-rich atmosphere. Insects grew to enormous sizes, a direct result of the abundant oxygen. Amphibians thrived, moving between land and water with ease, while the first reptiles appeared creatures that could lay eggs on land, freeing them from the need to return to the water to reproduce. This single adaptation would set the stage for all future land-dwelling vertebrates, including the mighty reptiles that would one day rule the Mesozoic. As the Carboniferous gave way to the Permian period, the Earth's climate began to shift once again. The supercontinent Pangaea had fully formed, bringing together nearly all the land on Earth into one colossal landmass. This created vast interior deserts and extreme seasonal changes. Reptiles diversified, giving rise to strange and formidable forms. From sail-backed predators like Dimetrodon to massive herbivores with armored hides, the seas too were home to complex ecosystems, with sharks, ammonites, and bony fish occupying every corner of the marine world. Yet the Permian would end in catastrophe, the greatest mass extinction in Earth's history, wiping out more than 90% of all species. The causes remain uncertain, but volcanic eruptions, climate shifts, and oceanic changes may all have played a role. From this devastation, only a fraction of life survived, ready to evolve into the age that would finally see the dinosaurs rise. And so, before the first dinosaur ever walked the earth, the stage had already been set by hundreds of millions of years of change, disaster, and renewal. It was a time when the world was shaped by forces beyond comprehension, when life was both fragile and unyielding, and when the planet itself seemed to be dreaming of what it would one day become. If you close your eyes and allow your imagination to drift backward across millions of years, you might begin to hear the hush of an ancient sea. The air is warm, heavy with moisture, and the sky above is tinged with colors familiar yet strange. Below you, waves rise and fall across shallow waters that stretch to the horizon, and beneath their surface lies a bustling kingdom of life. This is the Devonian world, the age of fishes, and to wander hereupon in thought is to step into an alien dream of Earth, long before the creatures we know as dinosaurs took their first breath. The seas of this forgotten age shimmer with motion. Schools of armored placoderms, fish sheathed in bony plates, drift through the current like underwater knights. Their heavy jaws, lined with sharp edges instead of true teeth, snap open and shut as they patrol the reefs. Among them glide elegant, lobe-finned fish, their fins thick and muscular, each movement slow and deliberate. These are no ordinary swimmers. In the shallows, some push their way onto muddy banks, gasping faintly as they gulp at the air. Their bodies are awkward on land, but hidden in their anatomy is the secret of the future, the beginning of legs, lungs, and a new way of life beyond the sea. Though they cannot know it, these tentative steps mark one of the most extraordinary transitions in Earth's history. Above the waters, forests are taking root. Not like the forests you know today, but towering groves of lycophytes, horsetails, and ferns. Their trunks rise like pillars, ribbed and patterned with strange markings, their crowns spreading into leafy fans that catch the sun. The air beneath is humid and dense, carrying the rich smell of damp earth and growing things. These plants stretch across wide swamps, their roots weaving together to create soggy, shadowed ground. Insects hum through the still air, some of them so large they cast moving patches of shade as they pass overhead. Dragonflies the size of hawks sweep through the canopy with shimmering wings, while giant millipedes, longer than a human stride, curl silently along the forest floor. The world is thick with oxygen, richer than the air you breathe now, and it fuels the growth of creatures, two sizes almost unimaginable. In these swamps, amphibians lurk in the shallows, their bodies half hidden beneath mats of vegetation. Some resemble giant salamanders, their wide mouths gaping to swallow smaller fish or insects unlucky enough to venture close. Their eyes break the surface of the water, glistening as they scan for movement. For them, the boundary between water and land is not a barrier, but a playground. They move between both realms with ease. Yet in their shadow, something new is stirring. Small reptiles, scaly and cautious, are beginning to emerge. Unlike the amphibians, these creatures can lay eggs on land, encased in protective shells that do not dry out in the open air. It is a quiet innovation, but one that will change everything. For with it comes freedom, freedom from the swamps, from the tether to water. These early reptiles are the pioneers of a lineage that will, in time, lead to the rise of dinosaurs, birds, mammals, and all the creatures that now fill the earth. But this world is not without peril. Storms sweep across the land, lightning flashing against skies that glow a deep, unfamiliar blue. Rain batters the forests, sending streams of water rushing between roots and into rivers that overflow their banks. In the seas, sudden changes in temperature and oxygen levels disrupt the delicate balance of life. Extinctions ripple quietly across ecosystems, a reminder that Earth's story is not a gentle one, but a cycle of creation and destruction. Entire species vanish, and yet, in their absence, space is made for others to flourish. It is a rhythm that has always defined life on this planet. As the Devonian fades, the Earth reshapes itself once more. Time stretches forward into the Carboniferous period, and the forests grow denser, their shadows deeper. The air is thick with oxygen, nearly twice as much as you breathe today, and it fuels a world of giants. Imagine walking through a swamp where tree-like plants tower above you, their trunks rising straight as columns before splitting into fronds that spread like green umbrellas overhead. The ground is soft beneath your feet, spongy with layers of fallen leaves and tangled roots. All around, the calls of unseen creatures, echo croaks, clicks, and the soft buzz of wings. From the canopy, a dragonfly with wings wider than your arms sweeps low, darting between shafts of sunlight. Along the water's edge, a massive millipede, as long as a car, moves slowly, its countless legs rippling in a hypnotic wave. This is a world of abundance, of dense, thriving life in every direction. The swamps of this age create more than just habitats. They lay down the foundation for the future itself. As plants die and fall into stagnant waters, their remains pile layer upon layer, pressed down by time and the weight of new growth. Over millions of years, this plant matter will transform into coal, the black stone that fuels modern industry. The forests of the Carboniferous are, in a sense, still with us today, their energy stored and waiting beneath the earth. But in their own time, they are vibrant, untamed, and alive. Among the shadows of these forests, amphibians rule, growing larger and more diverse than ever before. Some crawl on 4 stout legs, their bodies as long as a man is tall, their jaws wide enough to swallow small creatures whole. Others slither through water with serpentine grace, their limbs reduced to stubs. They thrive in the damp, oxygen-rich world, but they are no longer alone. Reptiles are spreading, venturing deeper into the forests, adapting to drier ground. Their scales gleam faintly in the dim light, their eyes sharp as they hunt for insects and smaller prey. It is the beginning of a quiet takeover. Slowly, steadily, the reptiles will become more dominant, their independence from water giving them the edge that the future demands. All the while, the earth itself is shifting beneath their feet. The continents are drifting closer, drawn together by forces deep within the planet. Mountains rise where landmasses collide, and new deserts form in the heart of the supercontinent that is taking shape. Winds whip across these arid expanses, carrying fine sand that glitters in the sun. Creatures that once lived only in lush swamps must now contend with harsher, drier environments. Some adapt, others vanish. Life, as always, bends beneath the weight of change. And so, this forgotten world, it is a story of endless beginnings, of creatures pushing into new realms, of plants reshaping the very air, and of continents drifting like puzzle pieces across the face of the planet. The Earth is not yet the place, you know, but already it holds within it every seed of the future. And as the Carboniferous gives way to the Permian, a shadow looms on the horizon, a trial so great that most of life will not survive it. Yet even in this, there lies the promise of what is to come. For in the ashes of catastrophe, the stage will finally be set for the rise of the most famous creatures Earth has ever known, the dinosaurs. The air is dry now, the swamps of the Carboniferous fading into memory. Where once forests of giant ferns and horsetails crowded the horizon, the land begins to stretch wide and open beneath an unrelenting sun. The Earth has drawn itself together into a single, massive supercontinent, Pangaea's sheer size reshaping the climate. The interiors are vast deserts, so far from the sea that no rain ever reaches them. In these endless arid plains, the wind sinks across sand dunes that ripple like frozen waves, and the sky hangs pale and cloudless for weeks at a time. The forests still exist, but they are pushed to the edges of the land, hugging coasts and river valleys. Life must adapt to survive here, and in this harsh new world, a different kind of creature begins to rise. Reptiles now dominate the land, with their dry, scaly skin and eggs protected by shells. They are free from the water's constant pull. Some are small and swift, darting between rocks in search of insects. Others are large, moving with deliberate power, their bodies built for endurance under the hot sun. Among the most striking is Dimetrodon, a predator unlike anything before or since. Its back carries a towering sail of bone and skin, rising high above its spine like the fin of some enormous fish turned land dweller. Its long jaws are lined with sharp teeth, perfect for slicing through flesh, and its gaze is fixed and calculating. This creature is not a dinosaur, will vanish millions of years before the first dinosaurs appear, but it is a symbol of this age, a top predator in a world that is still learning the rules of life on land. The seas of the Permian are just as rich and strange. Sharks patrol the coasts, their bodies streamlined and silent, while ammonites drift in spiraled shells that gleam like polished stone. Coral reefs stretch in bright alien gardens beneath the waves, home to fish with armor-like scales and coiled-shelled cephalopods. In deeper waters, currents carry nutrients that feed entire chains of life, from tiny plankton to massive predators. Yet, the oceans too are changing. Subtle shifts in temperature and chemistry ripple through the water. Changes too slow to notice in a single lifetime, but powerful enough to alter the course of everything. The landscapes of Pangaea hold many faces. In the wetter regions, forests of conifers and seed ferns rise from the soil, their trunks rough and fragrant. Streams wind through shaded groves, where smaller reptiles and amphibians gather to drink. In the deserts, the world is harder, the ground cracked and sunbaked. Here, life takes on a different shape, plants with deep roots and tough leaves. Animals that can survive without water for long stretches. Small synapsids, mammal-like reptiles dig burrows to escape the heat, emerging at dawn and dusk to feed. Some of these creatures, with their warm-blooded metabolisms, are distant ancestors of mammals yet to come, their futures hidden in the long weave of evolution. The air itself carries a certain stillness, as if the planet is holding its breath. But deep within the Earth, forces are building. In a region that will one day be Siberia, the crust begins to crack. Lava wells up from the fissures, pouring across the land in floods of molten rock that stretch for hundreds of miles. Volcanic eruptions darken the skies, sending plumes of ash high into the atmosphere. The air fills with fine dust, and sunlight becomes pale, filtered through a haze that lingers for years. As the lava cools, it releases vast amounts of gases, carbon dioxide and methane, that alter the climate in ways life has never faced before. The oceans begin to suffocate. Warming waters hold less oxygen, and vast stretches of the seafloor become lifeless. Coral reefs bleach and crumble. Shellfish populations collapse. The once steaming waters fall silent, their abundance fading into scarcity. On land, drought grips the continents, and forests wither. Without plant life to anchor the soil, wind carries away the fertile ground, leaving only dust and rock. The creatures of the Permian struggle against a world turning against them. Some adapt by growing smaller, needing less to survive. Others vanish entirely, their lineages cut short. It is the Great Dying, the most severe extinction event the Earth has ever endured. In just a geological heartbeat, more than 90% of marine species and 70% of land species disappear. The air grows hotter, the seas more acidic, the landscapes emptier with each passing century. Once proud predators, like Dimetrodon, vanish forever. The forests retreat, and in their absence, the land lies bare beneath a relentless sky. Yet even in this darkness, life does not give up. Tiny survivors endure in the shadows, small reptiles clinging to the last pockets of green fish, eking out a living in sheltered waters, insects hidden beneath the soil. From these survivors, the world will be rebuilt. When the dust finally settles and the earth begins to heal, the climate will shift again, the air will cool, and the continents will welcome a new wave of life. Among them will be the first true dinosaurs, stepping into a world forever shaped by the trials of those who came before. The forgotten age ends not with a whisper, but with a silence so deep it echoes through millions of years. It is the quiet before a different kind of storm, a pause before the earth unveils a new cast of creatures that will walk, swim, and fly across its surface. The story of the dinosaurs is about to begin, but it stands on the bones of worlds long lost, worlds whose shadows still lie beneath our feet. Imagine for a moment that you could stand outside of time, far above the planet, where the curvature of the earth bends away beneath you. You watch the long film of history spool slowly in reverse. Mountains shrink, forests dissolve, rivers vanish into the haze of ages. Continents draw together, then scatter like drifting leaves. The blue seas fade to green, then to the cloudy shallows of half-formed coasts. And there, in the distant past, the forgotten age unfolds a strange and beautiful chapter of Earth's story that most have never seen. You drift downward, as though carried on a silent wind, until your feet touch the Cambrian seas. Light filters through water, thick with life, the currents alive with trilobites that scuttle like living jewels across the sandy bottom. Strange, frond-like animals sway in the shallows, and predators with eyes on stalks glide by, their movements smooth and certain. The world is quiet, except for the muffled hush of water against the reef, the kind of sound that feels eternal. The ocean shifts beneath you, and you rise into the Ordovician, where coral reefs bloom for the first time. Nautiloids patrol their winding gardens, their shells spiraling in perfect ancient geometry. Their tentacles ripple as they pass, and behind them, tiny fish dart like silver sparks. Above, the land is bare and lonely, but along the coasts, small green plants cling to the damp sand, a promise of change that will take millions of years to fulfill. time bends again, and the Silurian sun warms your skin. The air carries the scent of wet stone, and the shores are alive with the earliest insects and scorpions. The water at your feet teems with jawed fishnu hunters, testing their strength. In the distance, forests begin to form, their stems thin but reaching upward, as if they already sense the sky calling them higher. A breath later, you stand in the Devonian shallows. Beneath the mirrored surface of a lake, lobe-finned fish move slowly, their eyes bright with an almost knowing light. One rises toward the bank, its fins pushing against the mud, its body struggling upward. It gulps at the air, clumsy and strange, but it stays there, half in the water, half on the land. You realize you are witnessing a first step, quiet, uncertain, but one that will change the shape of life forever. The world darkens, and you walk into the humid green of the Carboniferous. Towering plants arch above you, their trunks ribbed and patterned, their leaves whispering softly in the heavy air. Insects the size of birds drift between shafts of light, and the ground is alive with the ripple of countless legs, millipedes, long enough to vanish into shadow before you see their end. Amphibians slip between water and land like living bridges between two worlds, while reptiles, still small, still shy, begin to claim the deeper forests. But the air grows drier, the shadows thin. The Permian sun spreads across vast deserts where the wind etches patterns in the sand. Dimetrodon, with its great sail, walks slow and deliberate across the open plain, a king in a land of stone and heat. In the distance, mountains smoke with fire. The ground shakes beneath your feet. The skies grow dim with ash, and the world begins to fade. You watch as forests vanish, reefs collapse, and creatures you have come to know dissolve into memory. The silence that follows is vast, stretching across land and sea alike. And yet somewhere in that stillness, heartbeat remains. Small shapes move in the undergrowth, scales glinting in the pale light. Fish survive in sheltered waters. The wind carries the faint rustle of leaves where the last trees cling to life. It is enough. From these few survivors, the earth will begin again. The film of history begins to move forward once more. You watch the landscapes, hill forests returning, rivers carving their paths anew. And then, in a time still far from your own, the first dinosaurs step into the world, their shadows falling on land already shaped by hundreds of millions of years of forgotten lives. They will rise and fall in their turn, but the memory of the worlds before them lingers in every stone, in every grain of soil, in the air itself. You drift upward now, higher and higher, until the earth below becomes small enough to cup in your hands. You see its oceans glinting in the light, its continents like pieces of a vast puzzle, always moving, always changing. And you understand this planet is never still. It breathes in ages, it speaks in landscapes, and its history is deeper than we can ever fully hold. As you float in that quiet space above it all, the noise of thought begins to soften. The oceans of the Cambrian, the forests of the Carboniferous, the deserts of the Permianol fade into a gentle blur, like the edges of a dream you will only half remember. What remains is a feeling that you are part of a story so ancient, so unbroken, that it will continue long after this moment has passed. The earth turns slowly below you, and somewhere in that turning, you let go, sinking into a stillness as deep as the seas of the forgotten age. In the stillness, after the great dying, the earth feels almost empty. Vast stretches of land lie silent under the pale sun. Their once lush forests reduced to scattered groves, clinging to riverbanks and sheltered valleys. The seas, once full of life, are clearer now, with purity, but with absence. Coral reefs are gone, replaced by bare rock. Schools of fish are smaller, scattered, moving through open water, as if unsure of the world they now inhabit. And yet, there is something in the air's quiet persistence, a faint stirring that suggests life is not finished here. The winds carry seeds to new soil. Streams carve fresh channels through the land, offering water to places where none has flowed for centuries. Along the edges of a wide floodplain, a cluster of hardy plants spreads its leaves toward the sun. They do not know it, but they are the beginning of the Earth's recovery. In these early days after catastrophe, the survivors are few but determined. Small reptiles bask on warm stones, their eyes always moving, alert for predators that no longer exist. Amphibians linger near the water, their populations reduced to the smallest threads of lineage. In the ocean shallows, coiled ammonites drift lazily, their spiraled shells catching the light in muted colors. These creatures are remnants of a time that is gone, but they are also seeds of what is to come. Slowly, so slowly that no creature alive could ever notice, the planet begins to heal. The climate steadies. Rain returns to parched lands, and the rivers swell once more. Plants grow taller, their roots sinking deeper, their leaves casting shade where bare ground once baked under the sun. Insects, forever adaptable, return in greater numbers, their wings flashing like shards of glass in the light. And with them come the reptiles, spreading into new territories, exploring landscapes left empty by extinction. The smallest among them, no larger than a bird, move with quick, sharp motions. Others, with heavier bodies and stronger legs, pace the open plains with the patience of creatures that have nowhere to rush. The continents, still locked together in Pangaea, form a single, sprawling stage for the next act of Earth's history. The coasts are lined with forests, while the interior remains dry and vast. A land of extremes, burning hot in the day, bone-chillingly cold at night. Those who survive here are masters of endurance. In this crucible of heat and scarcity, life is reshaping itself, preparing for something entirely new. And then, without fanfare, without any moment that could be marked as the turning point, the first dinosaurs appear. They are small at first, swift-footed and light-boned, little more than clever, nimble hunters among other reptiles. But they carry within them the potential for greatness, the adaptability to grow larger, stronger, faster. They are not yet the giants, or the long-necked wanderers, or the terrible hunters that will one day rule the Mesozoic. For now, they are simply one part of a recovering ecosystem. But, like all great stories, theirs begins quietly. You watch them move across the sunlit plains, their heads bobbing as they search for insects and small lizards in the grass. You see a hatchling break free from its egg, the shell falling away in fragments that catch the light. It blinks against the brightness of the world, unaware of the hundreds of millions of years that have led to this moment. Around it, the wind bends the tall plants, carrying the scent of water from a river just beyond sight. This is not the end of the forgotten age. It is its final breath, its last offering to the ages that follow. And so the world turns slowly, as it always has. The memories of the Cambrian seas, the Devonian lakes, the Carboniferous forests, and the deserts of the Permian settle into the deep bedrock of history. The creatures of those times are gone, their forms preserved only in stone and in the whispers of the Earth's shifting crust. But their legacy is alive in every living thing, a chain of survival that reaches from the first flicker of life to this very moment. You rise again in your quiet journey through time, watching the shadows of these ancient worlds fold softly into one another. Oceans fade into deserts, forests into plains, mountains into low hills. The planet spins beneath you, its colors deepening in the long light of evening. And somewhere in that turning, you realize the story of the Earth is not one age, or even many ages. It is one endless, flowing movement, a current that carries life forward, no matter how many times it is broken. Far below, the first dinosaurs walk into their own dawn. Far ahead lies the age of giants, of wings that shadow the ground, of predators that will make the world tremble. But for now, the Earth breathes in the quiet after its long sleep. And you, still drifting in that endless expanse of time, let your own breath match its rhythm, until the weight of the ages melts into the soft darkness of rest. The dawn after the great dying is a quiet one. The light spills over Pangaea's vast plains in muted gold, not yet as fierce as it will become by midday. The air feels thin and clean, washed clear after centuries of chaos. You stand on a ridge of ancient stone, the wind brushing against you, carrying scents both sharp and faintly sweet: dry grass, warm rock, the faint temps of the nearby sea. Below you, the land stretches without end. In the distance, the thin line of a river gleams in the morning light, winding its way between scattered groves of hardy conifers. You can see life stirring there, a cluster of small reptiles warming themselves at the river's edge, their bodies still cool from the long night. Beyond them, a pair of sleek, long-legged creatures move through the scrub, pausing now and then to scan their surroundings. Their movements are light, precise, the first hints of a new kind of hunter. It is still early in the Triassic period, and the Earth is rebuilding with quiet determination. Plants spread wherever water allows, their roots gripping the soil tightly against the wind. Insects hum through the air, weaving between stems and branches. The rivers are home to fish that survived the cataclysm, their scales flashing as they twist in the current. Amphibians linger in the wetter places, their soft skin gleaming in the light, their calls echoing softly at dusk. And moving among them, slowly multiplying in number, are the small, swift dinosaurs, still rare, but already different from anything that came before. In the high deserts, life takes a harsher form. Days are blistering, nights are sharp with cold. Here, plants are sparse, their leaves narrow, their roots deep. Reptiles have adapted to this place, their bodies slim and efficient, their habits shaped by scarcity. They hide from the heat in shallow burrows, emerging only when the air cools. You watch one slip from the shade of a boulder, its long tail balancing each careful step. It stops, tongue flicking in the air, before darting forward in a flash to seize a smaller creature hiding in the sand. Life here wastes nothing. The world feels emptier than the lush ages that came before, but it is an emptiness filled with potential. The survivors of the Permian extinction are shaping the new rules of life, rules that will allow the dinosaurs to rise. Some grow taller, some faster, some more cunning. In the seas, marine reptiles begin to appear, their streamlined bodies cutting through the water with the ease of predators born to it. They are not the ammonites or armored fish of the Paleozoic. They are something entirely new, something that will dominate the oceans for the next 150 million years. Above, the skies are quieter now, but not empty. Dragonflies still patrol the edges of rivers, their wings shimmering in the sunlight. Small pterosaurs, early flyers, begin to test the air, their wing membranes catching the breeze as they glide between rocky cliffs. They are clumsy still, uncertain in their mastery of the sky, but their presence marks another turning point, the conquest of the air. You walk slowly across this land, each step carrying you forward in time. The groves grow denser, the dinosaurs more varied. Some stand taller now, their bodies more muscular, their tails sweeping the ground. Others remain small and light, darting between trees and shrubs. You hear the sharp calls of creatures defending their territory, the splash of something large moving through a river, the steady drone of insects that seem unchanged from ages past. This is no longer the world of the Cambrian seas or the Carboniferous forests. It is a new world with its own rhythm and balance. As you move forward, the sun lowers in the sky, and the colors of the land deepened gold into amber, green into shadow. The wind shifts, carrying the scent of rain from a storm building on the far horizon. In that moment, the whole of Earth's history seems to gather around you. The first spark of life in the ocean, the rise and fall of ancient creatures, the swamps and deserts and forests that have come and gone. Each age has given way to another. Each extinction has been followed by rebirth. And now, here you stand, at the edge of the age of dinosaurs, knowing that their reign will be long, but not eternal. The light fades, the first drops of rain cooling the air. You close your eyes and listen to it fall, steady and calm, on the soil that has carried so many lives before. The sound becomes a lull, like the slow breathing of the earth itself. And you feel the weight of time stretch out around you, endless, patient, unhurried. And then, as night gathers over the land, you let yourself drift, carried on the same current that has always moved life forward. Somewhere in the dark, the first great dinosaurs walk, their footsteps soft against the ground. And somewhere far ahead, in ages you will never see, the earth continues its eternal story, shaping worlds yet to come. The night after the rain is soft, cool, and filled with the scent of wet earth. When the first light of dawn rises again, the world below is washed clean, each leaf and stone glistening with droplets. The rivers run stronger, their voices louder as they cut through the land. Along their banks, green shoots push up from the damp soil, fragile but determined. This is how the Triassic rebuilds inch by inch, breath by breath. The small dinosaurs that have survived the night emerge cautiously from their shelter. Their movements are swift but measured, each step pressing against the ground as if testing its firmness after the storm. They are no longer rare oddities in this world. They are beginning to multiply, their shapes diversifying, their roles in the ecosystem expanding. Some have long, slender necks to pluck leaves from higher branches. Others have strong hind limbs built for sudden sprints, darting between cover to hunt insects or small vertebrates. You follow one of the latter through the early light. It weaves between rocks, moving in short bursts, pausing to listen. Its eyes are alert, scanning for movement. A faint rustle draws its attentions, something hidden among the fallen leaves. It freezes, lowers itself, then lunges. There's a flurry of motion, and when it rises again, a small lizard-like reptile dangles from its jaws. The hunter wastes no time, tearing into its meal before moving on. Life here has learned to be efficient. The harshness of the early Triassic has shaped everything into a creature of adaptability. In the dry uplands, the plants conserve water with thick, resinous needles. In the fertile valleys, sprawling ferns carpet the ground, feeding herds of small herbivores. Amphibians still linger in the wetlands, though fewer than in the ancient swamps of the Carboniferous. Those that remain are larger than the frogs of our own time, broad-headed, with jaws capable of swallowing prey in a single gulp. The oceans, too, have entered a new chapter. The storm that fell over the land has churned the coastal shallows, bringing nutrients up from the depths. Schools of fish shimmer in the light, feeding on plankton blooms. Above them, marine reptiles patrol the open-water ichthyosaurs, with long, dolphin-like bodies and eyes built for hunting in dim light. They move with an elegance that belies their power, turning and diving with the ease of predators perfectly suited to their world. In their wake, smaller creatures scatter, vanishing into the shelter of reefs and kelp. The reefs themselves are alive in new ways. Where once ancient sponges and corals ruled, now a more modern architecture is taking shape. Colorful coral polyps build intricate towers and ridges, providing shelter for countless small organisms. Crustaceans scuttle along the sandy bottom, leaving fine tracks behind them. Above, pterosaurs trace the air, their wings catching the rising thermals from the sun-warmed shore. They are awkward on land, but in the sky they are masters. Days pass, and you move across the landscape as time itself quickens. The dinosaurs grow larger and more confident. Some walk in small groups, their movements synchronized, their calls echoing across the plains. Predators stalk these herds from the shadows, waiting for the moment to strike. It is a delicate balance, the endless cycle of life and death that has played out on Earth for billions of years. At dusk one evening, you find yourself on the edge of a great inland desert. The wind has carved the sandstone into sweeping curves and sharp ridges, the surface patterned with ripples like the surface of a shallow sea. Somewhere, far in the distance, a thunderhead builds on the horizon, its dark form illuminated from within by flickers of lightning. In the fading light, you see something moving across the Dunza long-necked herbivore, its silhouette framed against the storm. It moves slowly, head swaying side to side as it grazes on the sparse plants that cling to the sand. The air grows cooler as the sun sets, and the desert begins to come alive. Nocturnal creatures stir from their burrows, their eyes gleaming in the moonlight. Insects buzz low to the ground. Small lizards dart after them, their bodies almost invisible in the shadows. Somewhere nearby, a predator calls a long, low sound that hangs in the still air. It is a reminder that even in the silence of night, the Triassic world is never truly at rest. You settle among the rocks, listening. The wind hums through the canyons, the storm's distant thunder rolls across the plain, and the soft movements of unseen animals whisper through the darkness. Above, the stars blaze in their billions, unchanged from the days when the first life stirred in Earth's oceans. It is the same sky that looked down on the Cambrian seas, the Carboniferous swamps, and the Permian deserts. It will be the same sky that watches the rise and eventual fall, the dinosaurs. And as you drift into that deep, timeless quiet, you understand the story of life on Earth is not a single age, but an endless succession of worlds, each giving way to the next. The age before the dinosaurs has ended, but the echoes of its forgotten days remain in every stone, every river, every breath of wind. The Triassic sun rises warm and golden over a landscape transformed. The storms of earlier seasons have given way to a long, steady warmth. Rivers run full but calm, their banks heavy with green. The air carries the sweet scent of flowering plants that do not yet exist in their modern formerly ancestors. Of later blooms modest and understated their colors, muted but still vibrant to the eyes of the insects that depend on them. The world here is one of vast open spaces. Between the river valleys stretch sweeping plains of ferns and cycads, broken by stands of tall conifers whose trunks rise like pillars into the sky. The wind moves through these forests in deep sighs, scattering light across the forest floor in slow, shifting patterns. Here, life moves in steady rhythms, creatures emerging with the first light, foraging through the day, retreating to the safety of shelter as the sun falls. It is among these plains and forests that the dinosaurs are beginning to rise, not in a sudden burst of dominance, but in gradual, patient steps. Where once they were small, quick-footed hunters and wary plant-eaters, now their numbers have swelled, and their sizes have begun to grow. Herds move across the open ground, their long necks swaying as they crop low vegetation. Their footprints leave deep impressions in the damp soil, marking paths that will be used again and again. One such herd moves along the edge of a slow-moving river. Their skin is a muted blend of greens and browns, patterned to blend with the ferns and conifer shadows. They feed in near silence, broken only by the occasional low call between them, a soft, resonant sound that carries far over the plain. Nearby, a smaller group of predators watches from the tree line. They are sleek and long-limbed, their eyes sharp, their tails twitching in anticipation. They will not attack today. The herd is too large, too alert, but they remember the paths the herbivores take, and patience is a skill they have learned well. Farther upstream, life thrives in the water. Fish swim in glittering shoals, disturbed now and then by the sudden strike of an ambush predator, an ancient relative of the crocodile, lurking motionless until the perfect moment. Amphibians, though fewer than in past ages, still find refuge in these wetlands, their broad bodies half submerged, waiting for insects to skim the surface. The air is never silent. Small pterosaurs wheel overhead, their high-pitched cries cutting across the calls of the land animals. Insects hum in great numbers, their wing beats blending into a constant, low vibration that fills the heat of midday. Sometimes the wind shifts, bringing with it the sound of something larger, deep bellow from miles away, so low and long it is felt more than heard. In the heart of the forest, you move through dappled light and the soft crunch of fallen needles underfoot. The conifers here are older than many of the creatures that walk among them, their roots digging deep into the earth. This is a place where the air stays cooler, where the forest floor remains damp, even in the height of summer. Small mammals, still little more than quick, sharp-eyed insect hunters, scurry between the roots. They are cautious, aware that predators can slip through the shadows as easily as they do. It is here, among the trees, that the changing world becomes clear. The variety of dinosaurs has grown small, feather-fringed runners darting after prey, mid-sized plant-eaters that can rear on hind legs to strip higher leaves, and early armored forms with bony plates for defense. They are not yet the giants they will become, but the foundation of that age is here, being laid step by step, generation by generation. As the day draws toward evening, The plains turn gold beneath the sinking sun. The herds begin to move toward water, their silhouettes stretched long against the light. Dust rises from their passing, catching the sun's last rays in drifting clouds. Predators follow at a distance, their eyes glowing faintly in the twilight. The night will bring its own rhythm, cooler air, quieter steps, sharper senses, but for now, the world holds a calm balance. The stars come quickly here, filling the sky in great, bright rivers of light. The moon reflects off the slow water, turning its surface silver. Somewhere far away, a volcano sends a faint red glow into the horizon, an ever-present reminder that the land itself is alive, that change is constant, that this age too will one day be only a memory in the stone. For now though, this is the dinosaurs' first true chapter. Small, resilient, and adaptable, they have claimed their place not through sudden dominance, but through survival, persistence, and an unbroken thread of life stretching back to the creatures that walked the earth long before them. And though they cannot know it, their time is only beginning. The late Triassic sun beats down upon an earth that is at once unified and divided. Unified because all the continents remain locked together in the single vast landmass of Pangaea, a world where an animal could, in theory, walk from one edge of the supercontinent to the other without ever touching an ocean. Divided because the land itself holds extremes, scorching deserts that stretch for hundreds of miles, dense green belts hugging river systems, and coastal regions where humid air and warm rains sustain lush forests. From high above, the planet seems more land than sea, a titan's shield ringed by narrow oceans. The interior is a place of punishing heat, where sand dunes shift endlessly under winds that never rest. Yet even here, life finds a way. In the desert margins, herds of hardy herbivores pick through tough cycads and drought-tolerant shrubs. Their hides are thick and dull-colored, their limbs built for covering long distances in search of water. They move in loose, wandering formations, following ancient seasonal routes known only to their kind. It is in these migrations that the dinosaurs begin their slow conquest of the world. They are still not the overwhelming giants of later ages, but their advantage is clear: speed, agility, and adaptability. The smaller predators can run for hours without tiring, darting between the legs of larger creatures to pick off the weak. Plant-eaters, though still modest in size compared to the titans yet to come, are light-footed and efficient, able to graze and move without exhausting themselves. These traits, honed over countless generations, allow them to spread farther and faster than their competitors. At the edges of the great deserts, the land changes abruptly. Dry, open flats give way to wetlands fed by seasonal floods. Here, the air grows heavy with the scent of water and green things. Amphibians linger in shaded pools, though their era of dominance is long past. The rivers carry life shoals of fish, slow-shelled turtles, and the snapping jaws of crocodile-like predators lying in ambush beneath the surface. Along the banks, early mammal relatives scurry through the ferns, vanishing into burrows at the faintest hint of danger. As the sun climbs toward its zenith, a storm gathers on the horizon. In the late Triassic, storms are fierce and sudden, breaking the monotony of heat with torrential rain and lightning that can split the sky from horizon to horizon. The scent of ozone fills the air as herds quicken their pace, moving toward higher ground. In the distance, a group of long-necked prosauropods, ancestors of the giants yet to come, moves in slow, swaying unison, their heads scanning the land for fresh growth. When the storm finally arrives, it is a wall of sound and force. The rain comes in sheets, flattening the ferns and drenching every surface. Rivers swell and spill over their banks. The air cools, and for a brief moment, the land feels almost gentle. Dinosaurs tilt their heads upward, letting the water wash over their hides. Smaller creatures take shelter under broad leaves or within hollow logs, waiting for the downpour to pass. In the nights that follow the rains, the world takes on a strange brilliance. The wetlands glow with the reflected light of a full moon, and the air hums with the calls of nocturnal life. Insects rise in clouds, and small, feather-fringed dinosaurs stalk them in the shallows, their movements quick and deliberate. Predators, larger than lions, prowl the edges of the herds, their eyes catching and reflecting the faintest glimmer of moonlight. Beyond the wetlands, the forests of the coastal regions stand as green fortresses. Towering conifers form high canopies, their branches heavy with seed cones. Ferns carpet the understory, broken by patches of open ground where sunlight streams through. Here, life is rich and varied. Giant amphibians lurking in shaded streams, armored reptiles grazing on low plants, and agile predators weaving between trunks in pursuit of prey. Yet, even here, the balance is shifting. The dinosaurs' presence is no longer limited to open plains or dry highlands. They have taken root in every environment: desert margins, wetlands, forests, and coastal lowlands. Their adaptability ensures that they are no longer the fringe players in the great game of survival. They are central to it. Still, the Earth is restless. The supercontinent itself groans and shifts under forces that will, in time, tear it apart. Volcanoes send plumes of ash into the sky, and the land shakes with deep, slow tremors. Somewhere, far from the migrations and the hunts, cracks are beginning to form, cracks that will widen into seas, reshaping the face of the planet forever. For now, though, the late Triassic belongs to the pioneers. They move across Pangaea in endless cycles, feeding, breeding, traveling, spreading into every niche the land offers. The age of dinosaurs is not yet at its peak, but its foundations are firmly set. The stage is ready, the players in place, and soon the world will see them rise into forms that will define an era. The early Jurassic dawns in a world forever changed. The late Triassic storms, migrations, and extinctions have set the stage, leaving vast areas of land sparsely populated and rich with opportunity. Pangaea has begun to crack, rifts forming between the eastern and western portions, hinting at oceans that will one day separate the continents. In these newly opened lands, dinosaurs no longer walk as cautious pioneers. They stride as rulers of the world. The air is thick with humidity in the coastal lowlands, carrying the scent of damp ferns, resin from conifers, and the rich, earthy smell of decay. The forests are denser than ever, trees towering into a sky filtered through high clouds of mist. On the forest floor, ferns and cycads create a layered jungle, sheltering the small mammals that survived the great extinction and a myriad of reptiles that have adapted to life in shadow. The first of the great herbivorous dinosaurs appear here, prosauropods larger than any Triassic ancestor, their long necks arching gracefully toward the canopy as they feed. Along riverbanks, dinosaurs of all shapes and sizes converge. Small theropods dart through the ferns, eyes bright and alert, hunting insects or scavenging scraps. Mid-sized carnivores prowl in the shadows, testing the vigilance of the herbivorous herds. Every sound, the rustle of leaves, the splash of water, the call of distant relatives, carries importance. Every day is a rehearsal of survival, a delicate balance of predator and prey, movement and stillness. In the open plains, the herds are larger than any that walked in the Triassic. Prosauropods, though still young in evolutionary terms, dominate the landscape with their size and numbers. They move with slow deliberation, trampling the ferns beneath their feet, leaving deep impressions in mud that will one day fossilize. These plains are a theater of life and death. Predators follow at a distance, watching, learning, waiting for the moment when weakness or distraction offers opportunity. The skies are alive as well. Early pterosaurs glide above the rivers, their wings catching the thermals that rise from sun-warmed land. Their calls echo faintly through the forest, marking territory and signaling mates. Insects follow the sun's path, their movements choreographed with the light. Birds are still far in the future, but the sky is not empty. It hums with life, movement, and anticipation. By night, the early Jurassic landscape transforms. The forests are quieted, and the nocturnal world takes over. Small mammals emerge from burrows, scurrying through the ferns. Nocturnal reptiles hunt in the shadows. Insects rise in swarms, illuminated by faint moonlight filtering through the canopy. The larger dinosaurs, resting after a day of feeding, are still alert, their senses attuned to the slightest sound or movement. The oceans, too, have been reshaped. Marine reptiles rule the shallow seas, moving with grace and power. Ichthyosaurs dart through the water, while plesiosaurs glide like living torpedoes in deeper areas. Coral reefs, having survived the upheavals of the Triassic, flourish anew, hosting a kaleidoscope of life. Ammonites and belemnites spiral through the water, their shells reflecting sunlight like tiny mirrors. Volcanoes occasionally rumble in the distance, reminding all creatures that the earth is still alive and changing. Lava flows and ash clouds may alter the landscape in hours, creating new habitats while erasing old ones. Life adapts, evolves, survives. The early Jurassic is an era of expansion and opportunity. Every niche once lost is now open to claim, and the dinosaurs move in to fill them with precision and persistence. From the small, agile hunters that dart between ferns to the towering prosauropods grazing in the open plains, the age of dinosaurs has begun in earnest. No longer mere survivors, they are the dominant force across the land. And as the sun sets on the early Jurassic, painting the landscape in gold and shadow, you can sense that this is only the beginning. Over the next millions of years, evolution will sculpt them into forms unimaginable, filling the world with giants, flyers, and hunters unlike anything before. The earth hums with potential, its rhythm steady and enduring. From the forgotten seas of the Cambrian to the deserts of the Permian, the forests of the Carboniferous, the migrations of the Triassic, and now the flourishing early Jurassic, life has endured, adapted, and triumphed. And as the dinosaurs stride into their dominion, the stage is set for a world ruled by these incredible creatures. A world whose memory will echo in stone and fossil for eons to come. The Middle Jurassic arrives with a sun that casts long golden rays across a world growing ever more alive. Pangaea continues its slow rift, oceans widening in the east and west, giving shape to future continents. The land itself is varied. High plateaus rise like stone fortresses. Broad floodplains stretch for hundreds of miles, and river systems weave their way through dense forests, carving valleys and wetlands along the way. In this world, dinosaurs no longer occupy merely pockets of territory. They dominate every corner of the land. On the floodplains, herds of sauropods move like living waves. Their massive legs crush the vegetation beneath them, and their long necks sweep across treetops, stripping leaves with precision. Their heads bob rhythmically, communicating through subtle vibrations and low-frequency calls that ripple across the plain. These creatures are the first true giants of the Jurassic, towering over every other herbivore. Smaller dinosaurs dart between their legs, taking advantage of the protection the colossal bodies provide. Predators have evolved alongside them. Theropods of increasingly formidable size patrol the forests and plains, their senses honed to detect weakness and opportunity. The air hums with tension as hunter and prey navigate a delicate balance. Every rustle of leaves, every shadow moving in the underbrush carries weight. Even the smallest dinosaurs must remain vigilant, learning lessons written into the land by generations of survival. Forests have grown taller and denser, creating ecosystems within ecosystems. Conifers dominate, their trunks forming thick canopies above. Beneath them, ferns and cycads create a tangled understory where smaller reptiles and early mammals seek refuge. Pools of water glisten with reflections of the sky, home to amphibians that have persisted through countless epochs. Dragonflies, the size of modern birds, hover over these pools, their eyes multifaceted and ever watchful. Insects and small vertebrates navigate this airborne world with care, for every shadow may conceal a hunter. In the wetlands, crocodile-like predators patrol slowly, their eyes barely breaking the surface as they wait for prey to wander too close. The Middle Jurassic also marks the rise of diversification among smaller dinosaurs. Stegosaurs, armored and formidable, patrol the edges of groves, their plates and spikes a warning to any predator daring enough to challenge them. The evolutionary arms race intensifies with every season, every generation, refining the strategies of life and survival. Volcanoes in the distance remind all creatures of the Earth's restlessness. Clouds of ash drift across the sky, sometimes blotting the sun for hours. Yet life adapts. Plants survive the temporary darkness. Animals shelter and endure. And once the skies clear, the land continues to flourish. The Middle Jurassic is an era of expansion, where every environment, floodplain, desert, margin, river valley, forest, and coastal region holds its own drama of survival, growth, and evolution. By night, the world transforms once more. The stars reflect off calm rivers, casting a silver glow across the plains. Nocturnal dinosaurs emerge cautiously, while small mammals scurry between the ferns and fallen trees. The air carries the low hum of insects and the distant calls of night-hunting predators. Even in darkness, the balance of life continues, a rhythm as old as time itself, echoing from the Cambrian seas to the forests and plains of the Jurassic. It is in this middle to late Jurassic world that the dinosaurs truly become the rulers of Earth. Giants walk alongside nimble hunters, armored herbivores stride in defense, and flying predators master the skies. Each ecosystem is layered, complex, and resilient. The land hums with the energy of life, a reminder that the long history of the Earth, its rises and falls, its forgotten ages and cataclysms, has led to this flourishing, iconic era. And as you watch from high above, drifting through time once more, the sheer magnitude of it becomes clear. From the first stirrings of life in the oceans to the recovery from extinction in the Triassic, the slow and patient shaping of evolution has produced a world dominated by dinosaurs. Their age is now firmly established, and the story of the forgotten age has become a foundation for this golden era time when Earth, these inland waters, bring a humid, almost tropical climate to many regions, creating sprawling green belts where life flourishes. The world feels larger, now more varied, more intricate ecosystems woven together like a great living tapestry. The giants of this age are unlike anything that has walked before. Herds of Brachiosaurus stride across the open floodplains, their heads towering above the canopy. From their lofty vantage, they pull entire branches into their mouths with slow, deliberate movements, consuming tons of plant matter each day. In the distance, Diplodocus herds drift like massive ships, necks and tails forming gentle arcs against the horizon. Each step they take sends subtle vibrations through the soil, a reminder of their weight and power. Predators have adapted to meet this scale. Allosaurus stalk the plains and forests, their keen senses attuned to the faintest sound of injury or weakness. They are masters of timing, striking with bursts of speed, their jaws clamping down with precision honed over millions of years. When they appear, even the giants shift nervously, knowing that no creature, no matter its size, is entirely beyond the reach of hunger. Forests are denser now, layered in shades of deep green. Beneath the conifer canopy, ferns stretch across the forest floor like a living carpet, interrupted only by the twisted trunks of cycads and ginkgos. Light filters through in fractured beams, illuminating insects that drift lazily in the humid air. Small mammals scurry here, their tiny bodies quick and secretive, avoiding the searching eyes of feathered theropods that prowl the understory. The skies are claimed by pterosaurs of unprecedented size. Trinodons glide effortlessly along coastal cliffs, while smaller, swift-winged forms patrol inland lakes. Their cries echo across valleys and beaches, mingling with the hiss of waves and the distant calls of dinosaurs on the shore. The coastal waters themselves teem with marine reptiles, long-necked plesiosaurs, swift ichthyosaurs, and immense pliosaurs, their massive jaws lined with teeth like ivory daggers. The inland seas act as great crossroads for life. Herds of herbivorous dinosaurs migrate along their shores, following the seasonal bloom of vegetation. Predators follow in turn, their movements shaping the delicate balance of these ecosystems. Along muddy riverbanks, crocodile-like creatures bask in the sun. As the seasons turn, the late Jurassic reveals a resilience born of deep evolutionary history. Storms sweep in from the inland seas, drenching the forests and plains in torrents of warm rain. The rivers swell, carving new channels, flooding lowlands, and depositing rich sediments that feed the next wave of plant growth. Lightning illuminates the silhouettes of grazing giants, and the booming calls of distant sauropods carry across the wind. In the quiet after a storm, the land feels timeless. Steam rises from the soaked earth, the air heavy with the scent of wet foliage and soil. Insects emerge from shelter, birds and their dinosaurian kin shake water from their feathers. and the chorus of life resumes, as if the storm had been no more than a passing thought in the long memory of the earth. From the smallest mammal to the tallest sauropod, every creature is part of a finely tuned system that has evolved over hundreds of millions of years. The late Jurassic is a peak of stability, yet beneath its grandeur lies the same truth that has governed every forgotten age before it. Change is inevitable. The continents will drift further apart, climates will shift, and new life will rise, even as old giants fade. For now, however, the age of dinosaurs stands in its full glory. The world hums with vitality, a planet in perfect rhythm with itself, and high above, the stars mark the passage of time with cold, patient light, watching as yet another chapter of Earth's ancient story unfolds. The early Cretaceous opens with a world in transition. The supercontinent Pangaea is now a memory, split into smaller continents that drift steadily apart, carried by the slow but unstoppable movements of tectonic plates. Oceans spread between these landmasses, their tides and currents carving new climatic pathways. This fragmentation reshapes life on every shore, in every forest, and across every plain. The climate remains warm, yet it is no longer uniform. Where vast tropical belts once stretched unbroken, cooler temperate regions now emerge near the poles, while deserts form in the rain shadows of young mountain ranges. These changes act as filters and gateways, allowing some species to spread while isolating others into unique evolutionary paths. What was once a single interconnected theater of life becomes a network of distinct stages, each telling its own story. Among the most remarkable developments is the quiet rise of flowering plants. At first glance, they are small and unassuming, scattered among the ferns, cycads, and conifers that have ruled for millions of years. But their advantage is subtle and profound. They reproduce with the help of animals, drawing them in with nectar, scent, and color. The partnership between flowers and insects will grow into one of the most successful evolutionary alliances in history. Though here, in the early Cretaceous, it is still in its infancy. The dinosaurs themselves adapt to these changes in curious ways. Iguanodons roam the forests and open plains, moving in large, coordinated herds. They are neither as colossal as the great sauropods, nor as nimble as smaller herbivores. But they thrive in their versatility, capable of browsing low vegetation or rearing up to feed on higher branches. New armored dinosaurs, like Polacanthus, carry intricate shields of bone and spikes, turning their very bodies into fortresses against predators. The predators, in turn, diversify. New theropods like Neovenator and Acrocanthosaurus emerge, their forms sleek yet muscular, their senses honed for the hunt. Some are pack hunters, working in coordination to bring down prey larger than themselves. Others stalk alone, relying on stealth and raw strength. In the forests, smaller raptors with feathers and bright eyes flit among the undergrowth, darting out to snatch mammals, lizards, and early birds. Coastal regions and inland waterways are alive with activity. Turtles, crocodilians, and fish crowd these habitats, sharing the shallows with long-necked plesiosaurs that glide like silent ghosts. In deeper waters, mosasaurs begin their slow rise toward dominance, their bodies built for relentless pursuit. Overhead, pterosaurs expand their hold on the skies, some now adapted for long distance, gliding across open oceans, others diving like seabirds to snatch prey from the waves. Seasonal patterns shape the land more strongly than before. In some regions, wet and dry seasons govern the rhythm of life. Herds migrate vast distances to follow fresh grazing, trailed by predators who know the routes as well as their prey. In the high latitudes, dinosaurs endure months of twilight and cold, their survival tied to the slow return of the sun. Even in these harsher conditions, life persists, an early sign that dinosaurs are more adaptable than their ancient image might suggest. The early Cretaceous is not as dominated by towering sauropods as the Jurassic, yet the giants still roam in places where conditions favor them. Titanosaurs begin their ascent here, a lineage that will carry the last of the great long-necked giants into the very end of the age of dinosaurs. These massive creatures move with deliberate grace, their long tail swaying in balance, their bulk reshaping the landscapes they inhabit. As time passes, the pace of change quickens. Continental drift isolates some species entirely, forcing them into unique evolutionary experiments. In these pockets of separation, strange forms appear: herbivores with unusual crests or exaggerated armor, predators with new hunting strategies, plants with leaves and flowers unlike anything seen before. The world grows more varied, less uniform, and with that variety comes resilience. Yet, beneath this rich diversity, the same geological forces that have guided life for eons continue their work. Volcanoes erupt along the edges of splitting continents, sending ash into the sky and minerals into the seas. Tectonic collisions raise mountains, altering winds and rainfall patterns. Each shift, whether sudden or slow, becomes another thread in the complex weave of the early Cretaceous world. The age feels restless, alive with experimentation. Life is thriving, but it is also preparing, adapting to changes that are not yet fully visible, but which will shape the final chapters of the dinosaurs' reign. And far above, the stars continue their slow drift across the night sky, as they have through every forgotten age before this one, silent witnesses to Earth's ceaseless transformation. The mid-Cretaceous unfolds like a slow explosion of color and complexity. The flowering plants that began as quiet newcomers in the early Cretaceous now spread across the continents with startling speed. Their blossoms paint the landscapes in shades never before seen on Earth: creams, reds, golds, and deep purples, drawing insects in irresistible swarms. Pollination becomes a partnership so successful that both plant and insect diversify together, weaving a new and intricate web of life. Bees, wasps, butterflies, and beetles adapt to this floral bounty, shaping their bodies and behaviors to match the flower's structures. Each pollinator and plant refines the other through an unspoken pact of evolution. Food in exchange for reproduction. In turn, herbivorous dinosaurs find themselves adjusting to new tastes and textures, learning to browse these fast-growing plants alongside the still dominant ferns and conifers. The continents continue to drift, changing the map of the world. Shallow seas spill over low-lying land, forming vast inland waterways. In North America, the Western Interior Seaway cuts the continent in two, its warm waters teeming with ammonites, fish, and marine reptiles. These inland seas are unlike anything in the Jurassic, calm in places, stormy in others, rich in nutrients that fuel complex food chains. Along their shores, new dinosaurs take shape: hadrosaurs, duck-billed plant eaters, merge, their broad jaws lined with hundreds of tightly packed teeth, perfect for grinding tough vegetation. They are social creatures, moving in herds that can number in the hundreds, their calls echoing across the coastal plains. Many develop elaborate crests and head ornaments, perhaps for display, perhaps for sound amplification, perhaps for reasons no fossil can yet fully explain. In the forests and open plains, ceratopsians horned, dinosaurs begin to rise to prominence. Triceratops lies far in the future, but its ancestors already display small frills and facial horns, their skulls growing heavier and more ornate with each generation. Their herds, too, become more organized, defending one another from predators with defensive walls of horns and sheer numbers. The predators that stalk these herds are no less specialized. Tyrannosaurs are still relatively modest in size compared to the giants they will one day become, but their skulls are already showing the traits of a lineage built for bone-crushing bites. Other theropods, like the sleek dromaeosaurs, favor agility over brute force, using feathers for insulation, display, and perhaps even for gliding or aiding in maneuverability during a chase. Above, the skies grow more crowded. Pterosaurs reach astonishing sizes, some with wingspans rivaling small aircraft, adapted for crossing entire seas without landing. Others are diminutive, darting between cliffs to snatch insects or skimming the water for fish. Early birds, still bearing traces of their dinosaurian ancestry, compete for the same niches, their feathers becoming more refined for powered flight. The seas themselves are kingdoms of giants. Mosasaurs, having risen from lizard-like ancestors, now dominate the marine food chains with streamlined bodies and double-hinged jaws that allow them to swallow large prey whole. Plesiosaurs persist, their long necks and paddle-like limbs carrying them gracefully through the shallows. Sharks diversify, some specializing in shell-crushing teeth, others in swift predatory attacks. Volcanic activity intensifies in parts of the world, sending plumes of ash high into the atmosphere and periodically darkening skies. While these events can disrupt ecosystems, they also enrich soils with minerals, feeding the spread of plants and indirectly supporting herbivores. The Earth's surface is restless, shaping coastlines, raising new island chains, and redirecting rivers. Through it all, the mid-Cretaceous feels like a time of abundance, lush, green, and full of life at every scale. The great evolutionary experiments that began millions of years before now bear fruit in forms more specialized, more vibrant, and more interconnected than ever before. Yet, in the grand story of life, such flourishing often comes before a fall. The seeds of change, both literal and metaphorical, are already sown, and the world will not remain in this state forever. For now, the mid-Cretaceous stands as a testament to nature's ability to create complexity from chaos, to adapt and thrive no matter how many times the continents shift or the climate changes. But just beyond the horizon of time, forces are gathering that will begin to tip the balance toward an age of giants, predators, and, eventually, decline. The late Cretaceous opens like the crescendo of a symphony, a world at its biological peak. Every continent, every ecosystem brims with specialized creatures, each shaped by millions of years of adaptation. Yet there is a strange undercurrent to this abundance, as if nature is writing the final, most elaborate chapter of an era it somehow knows will soon close. On land, dinosaurs reach their most extravagant designs. In North America and Asia, the hadrosaurs now dominate the herds. Their crests grow taller, stranger, more hollowed, transforming their calls into deep, resonating bellows that can travel for miles. Paleontologists suspect these sounds were more than just communication. They were identity, warning, perhaps even song. The vast inland plains resound with the harmonies of hundreds of individuals calling at once, like the prehistoric equivalent of an orchestra. Ceratopsians, too, reach their zenith. Triceratops, with its massive frill and 3 sharp horns, becomes one of the largest and most recognizable herbivores of all time. Other relatives flaunt wildly shaped frills edged with spikes or scallops, their skulls evolving into living banners of intimidation and beauty. These features may have served as deterrents to predators, as signals of maturity, or even as visual badges in complex social structures. Tyrannosaurus rex, the apex of its lineage, is a towering figure, its head alone over a meter long, its jaws capable of crushing bone as easily as snapping branches. With forward-facing eyes and powerful leg muscles, it is both a pursuit hunter and a scavenger, ruling over the food chains of its environment. In Asia, Tarbosaurus plays a similar role, proving that this predator blueprint is effective across continents. Smaller predators still thrive in the shadows. Dromaeosaurs, raptor-like dinosaurs, remain swift and cunning, their curved claws and pack behaviors making them deadly, even against prey much larger than themselves. Some sport elaborate feathers, brightly colored for display, further blurring the line between dinosaur and bird. In the skies, pterosaurs reach their final, most spectacular forms. Quetzalcoatlus, one of the largest flying creatures to ever live, soars with a wingspan that could rival a small plane, hunting across inland plains and coastal wetlands. Smaller pterosaurs and true birds compete for the aerial niches, with birds steadily becoming more advanced in wing shape, beak design, and nesting behaviors. The seas, too, are teeming with predators of unparalleled size. Mosasaurs now rule the oceans, their powerful tails driving them through water at frightening speeds. They hunt fish, ammonites, seabirds, and even other mosasaurs. Plesiosaurs and pliosaurs hold on in certain regions, their elegant bodies slicing through coastal waters, while sharks continue to diversify into forms specialized for speed, crushing shells, or scavenging the deep. The climate in much of the late Cretaceous remains warm, with high sea levels flooding low-lying lands. Inland seas, such as the Western Interior Seaway, still divide continents, creating unique coastal environments rich in marine life. However, subtle changes begin to ripple through the ecosystems. Certain regions show a slight cooling trend, and volcanic activity in places like India begins to intensify, releasing gases that alter atmospheric chemistry. Forests are now dense with flowering plants, creating rich undergrowth and colorful meadows. Pollinators continue their endless work, ensuring that seeds spread and new plant species emerge. But this plant diversity is a double-edged sword. Herbivores must adapt quickly to changing food sources, and competition among species grows fierce. Life in the late Cretaceous is a masterpiece of balance, but it is also a high-wire act. Every creature is perfectly tuned to its environment, yet this perfection comes with fragility. Should the climate shift too abruptly, should the seas withdraw too quickly, should the skies darken for too long, many of these great forms would have no room to adjust. And in the silent depths of space, far beyond the clouds and stars visible to any Cretaceous eye, a small, cold object is already on a trajectory that will cross Earth's path. It carries no malice, no intentionally mass, speed, and inevitability. The world below remains unaware, continuing to flourish in its final chapter. The stage set for an ending that will be as sudden as it is catastrophic. In the late Cretaceous's final moments, life carries on in its grand, oblivious pageantry. The hadrosaurs continue to trumpet across the floodplains. Triceratops herd together under the watchful eyes of their elders, and Tyrannosaurus stalks the shadows of the forests, its heavy footfalls muffled by layers of fallen leaves. To them, nothing is amiss. Yet, in the darkness of space, an ancient traveler is drawing near. It began its journey tens of millions of years ago, dislodged from the cold, silent reaches of the asteroid belt, or perhaps the farthest edges of the solar system. A fragment of stone and metal, it is unremarkable in appearance, bitted, irregular, no larger than a small mountain. But its velocity is staggering, and in the physics of impact, speed is a far greater weapon than size. It is moving toward Earth faster than a rifle bullet, locked into a path from which there is no escape. Far below, Earth's own forces are stirring in ways life does not notice. In what will one day be called India, the Deccan Traps have begun a volcanic episode of extraordinary scale. Lava floods from great fissures in the land, releasing thick plumes of carbon dioxide and sulfur into the air. These gases begin to tinker with climate patterns. Ever so slightly, nights grow cooler in some places. Seasons subtly shift. Most creatures adapt without difficulty, but the changes are the faint tremors before a quake. The seas remain warm and full of life. In the western interior seaway, enormous mosasaurs glide beneath shoals of glittering fish, their tails propelling them with terrifying speed. Ammonites drift in swirling currents, their spiral shells flashing in the light. Birds wheel and dive above the surface, plucking prey with needle-like beaks. None know that these are their last generations. In the forests, flowering plants reach their peak diversity, carpeting the land in blossoms and fruits. Pollinators hum in countless numbers, weaving between petals. This abundance supports entire ecosystems of small mammals, insects, and reptiles, all feeding on the endless cycle of growth. But in a few short years, this lush web will be torn apart in a matter of days. The asteroid enters the inner solar system. Its surface is scarred by countless collisions from its own long past, each crater a testament to its silent wanderings. It passes near Mars, feeling the faint tug of gravity. Earth now looms, larger in its path, the planet's blue oceans and swirling clouds drawing it in. Still, in the Cretaceous wilderness, there is no warning knot in the calls of the herds, not in the movements of predators, not in the cycles of migration. Paleontologists who study these last days often wonder what the world's final normal sunrise looked like. Perhaps it broke over the inland sea, turning the water into a sheet of molten gold. Perhaps it lit the crests of Parasaurolophus, glinting on their curved head tubes as they raised them in chorus. Somewhere, a clutch of dinosaur eggs warmed in the sun. Somewhere else, a Tyrannosaurus tore into the carcass of a hadrosaur, as it had countless times before. There was nothing in that morning to suggest that an age was ending. And then, in the high atmosphere, a tiny new star appears, blinding, growing larger at impossible speed. To any creature with eyes lifted skyward, it would look as though the sun had dropped a spark into the heavens. In seconds, it swells into a white fireball. There is no time to react, no time to flee. When it strikes, it will release more energy than all the volcanoes, earthquakes, and storms in Earth's history combined. The point of impact, what will one day be the peninsula, will vaporize instantly, sending molten rock and dust high into the atmosphere. The shock wave will race outward faster than sound, flattening forests for hundreds of miles. In the oceans, tsunamis taller than city buildings will ripple across the globe. But the greatest killer will be the sky itself. Dust and ash will blot out the sun, plunging the world into a sudden, unnatural night. Photosynthesis will halt, the plant world collapsing first, followed by the animals that depend on it, and finally, the predators at the top of the chain. It will be the end not just of the dinosaurs, but of the entire world they built over 160 million years. Yet, in the chaos, some will endure. Tiny mammals huddled underground, crocodiles in sheltered rivers, seeds buried deep in soil. These quiet survivors will inherit the earth, and from them, a new age will dawn. One that will eventually give rise to a creature capable of looking back, piecing together the fragments, and asking, what happened before the dinosaurs? It is late morning in what will one day be the peninsula. The air is heavy and warm, carrying the scent of salt from a nearby sea. A shallow bay glitters under the sunlight, fringed by mangrove-like trees and carpeted in soft sediments. Beneath the surface, fish dart between stands of algae, while small marine reptiles glide lazily in the shallows. Nothing stirs the peace until the sky changes. At first, it is only a strange, sharp light in the east, brighter than the sun, but smaller, as if a jewel had been set into the heavens. It grows larger with every heartbeat. The creatures below, unable to comprehend what they see, shift uneasily. The waves begin to ripple without wind. Then comes the sound, or rather, the absence of it. The air seems to hold its breath. Birds wheel erratically above the water, their calls jagged and urgent. On the coastline, a group of small dinosaurs, perhaps feathered raptors, pause mid-step, tilting their heads toward the growing fire in the sky. The asteroid is now a blazing sphere of molten rock, wrapped in a corona of white-hot vapor. As it punches into the atmosphere, the air before it is compressed to such extremes that it glows hotter than the surface of the sun. The shockwave races ahead of it, invisible but deadly. Impact. In the instant it strikes, time seems to split. The rock slams into the shallow sea at more than 20 kilometers per second. Its kinetic energy transformed into pure heat and pressure. The water directly beneath it vaporizes in a flash, leaving a gaping void. The surrounding ocean collapses into that void, hurling colossal walls of water outward in all directions. Beneath the impact point, the crust shatters. For a moment, solid rock behaves like a liquid, flowing upward and outward in a titanic bloom of molten debris. Temperatures at the heart of the explosion soar beyond anything found in Earth's natural history, thousands of degrees hotter than volcanic magma. The shockwave expands through the atmosphere, flattening forests in a perfect ring around the impact site. Trees snap like matchsticks, animals are hurled into the air. Those within hundreds of kilometers die instantly, not from falling debris, but from the sheer, crushing force of the blast wave. In the sky above, ejecta-vaporized rock, molten droplets, shattered crust rise in a towering column, piercing the upper atmosphere. The plume spreads outward in a fiery umbrella, glowing with incandescent heat. Some of this material will arc around the planet, re-entering the atmosphere hours later as a rain of shooting stars. Each grain hot enough to ignite the ground it touches. For a moment, the world is brighter than it has ever been. Shadows vanish in the all-consuming glare. Creatures thousands of kilometers away pause in confusion as the horizon flares white, thinking dawn has come early. But the light carries no warmth of comfort, only the searing kiss of destruction. And then the darkness begins. The sky, still roiling with fire, starts to choke with ash and dust. The sun becomes a blurred disk behind a thickening veil. Across the globe, temperatures drop sharply. In the oceans, surface waters cool within days, altering currents and starving the plankton at the base of the food chain. Life does not yet understand what has happened, but the age of the dinosaurs, the long reign that began when their ancestors outlasted the chaos of the Triassic, has just been mortally wounded. The clock is ticking toward extinction. In the days following the impact, Earth's surface becomes a realm of shifting light and shadow. Though light is now a pale, sickly thing, the sky is a bruised gray, the sun dimmed to a hazy smear. The air smells wrong, acrid, metallic, faintly sulfurous. Fine particles drift downward in a constant, choking haze, coating leaves, settling in the folds of skin, and gathering in pools of stagnant water. The forests nearest the impact site are gone, stripped to their stumps, or burned to blackened skeletons. But even thousands of kilometers away, the trees stand wounded leaves, browned from the intense heat pulse that swept the globe in the hours after the strike. Birds and small dinosaurs flit among the branches, not to feed, but to search for the few living insects that remain. The chirring and buzzing of normal forest life has gone eerily silent. In open plains, firestorms rage. The debris hurled into the upper atmosphere has begun to re-enter, fragment by fragment, igniting the sky. For hours and then days, the world seems to be burning in slow motion. Thin grasses curl into ash. The topsoil hardens into brittle crust. Even those far from any flames breathe smoke that stings the eyes and throat. The oceans, too, are changing. Where once the surface danced with sunlight, now the water lies dark and cold. The plankton that fed entire marine food webs wither without the warmth and light they need to grow. Fish swim sluggishly, confused by the sudden chill. Along the coastlines, scavengers, small marine reptiles pick at the debris washing ashore, charred vegetation, dead seabirds, the occasional carcass of a land animal swept out to sea and brought back by the tide. For the dinosaurs, the disruption is immediate and brutal. Herbivores find their food sources vanishing. The tender fronds, cycads, and low-growing shrubs they rely on are dying from lack of light and contaminated rainfall. Carnivores, in turn, find their prey weaker, thinner, harder to track. Hunger drives some to fight one another, or to venture into territories they would normally avoid. The nights are colder now, the mornings slow to warm. Small survivors fare better not because they are stronger, but because they require less. Mammal-like creatures, little more than furred shadows in the undergrowth, scavenge seeds, insects, and whatever scraps they can find. Amphibians retreat to muddy riverbanks and hibernate in the silt. Some reptiles, sluggish from the chill, conserve energy by moving only when absolutely necessary. Insects, though diminished, still buzz in damp corners, feeding on decaying plant matter. These humble feeders are the quiet lifeline that keeps certain food webs from collapsing entirely. Rain begins to fall. At first, it seems a relief, a cleansing of the ash from the air. But this rain is different. Warm, acidic, and carrying the bitter temps of dissolved minerals from the vaporized rock and seawater. Puddles hiss faintly where the drops strike them. Freshwater ponds turn cloudy, killing fish and amphibian eggs. Leaves wither faster under this caustic wash. Weeks pass, and the darkness deepens. No longer merely clouded, the atmosphere now feels heavy, oppressive, as if the sky itself is pressing down. The world is quieter. Even the wind moves differently, carrying a muted whisper instead of its usual rustling song. Every living thing seems to know that something immense has shifted, not just in the air, but in the balance of life itself. The survivors do not know they are living through the beginning of an extinction event that will erase 3/4 of all species on Earth. They only know the rules have changed. The age that began with the dinosaurs will not end overnight, but the long shadow of its demise now stretches across the land, the sea, and the sky. The first months after the impact are a slow unraveling. The world does not end in an instant. It withers. What began as a roar of destruction fades into a drawn-out silence, a silence in which life struggles to adapt or fails to. The sky remains dim, thick with the suspended dust and soot that now circles the planet. Sunlight, the engine of every green leaf and every ocean plankton cell, is reduced to a pale ghost of itself. This dimming is subtle at first, almost like a strange season. But as weeks turn to months, the effect deepens. Temperatures drop. The air feels thinner, not for lack of oxygen, but because the cold makes every breath seem sharper, more distant. On land, plant life falters. The towering conifers that once shaded the forest floors lose needles in great showers. The branches left skeletal and gray. Ferns curl inward, their fronds turning brittle. Without enough sunlight, photosynthesis slows to a crawl, and the once green world begins to fade into brown and gray. Herbivores wander farther in search of food, gnawing at bark, roots, and whatever tough vegetation they can find. Many grow gaunt, their ribs showing beneath shrunken hides. The great predator stranosaurs, abelisaurs, and other apex hunters feel the shift in their bones. Prey is scarce. The sick and weak fall first. Easy kills, but these are quickly exhausted. Predators turn on each other, their territories becoming battlefields over the meager scraps of life that remains. Even the strongest cannot hunt without energy, and many perish not from wounds, but from the slow wasting of hunger. Rivers run colder now. In the shallows, fish move sluggishly, their movements almost dreamlike in the dim light. Amphibians, sensitive to both temperature and water quality, retreat deeper into mud, entering a torpor that may last until the world changes, if it ever does. Along the coasts, marine reptiles swim in waters increasingly empty of life. With plankton dying, the base of the ocean food chain collapses, sending ripples upward. Schools of fish disperse, starving seabirds circle aimlessly, and scavengers pick at the increasing number of carcasses washing ashore. The acid rain continues intermittently, each storm a faint hiss against leaves and rocks. Soil chemistry shifts, draining nutrients from the earth. New plants fail to sprout, and seeds that do germinate often die before breaking the surface. Insects decline sharply, leaving birds and small reptiles scrambling for the few that remain. Yet, in the shadow of this devastation, There are survivors, not mighty or powerful, but small and resilient. Mammal-like creatures, the size of shrews, dig deep burrows, emerging only briefly to forage. Crocodilians linger near shrinking waterholes, able to go weeks without feeding. Certain turtles hibernate in the mud, their heartbeats slowed to a fraction of normal. These animals have no awareness of the scope of the disaster, only that they must endure until conditions improve. Months pass, and the earth takes on a strange stillness. The familiar sounds of the Mesozoic birdsong, insect hums, the distant calls of great reptiles are muted or gone entirely. The nights stretch long and cold, the days barely warmer. It is not yet a frozen world, but it leans toward one. Above it all, the shroud of dust and ash lingers in the upper atmosphere, slowly circling the globe like a veil that refuses to lift. It is this veil, unseen from the ground but felt in every fading leaf and empty belly, that dictates the future. For most species, that future will be short. By the time a full year has passed since the impact, the age that once ruled the earth is already gone in all but memory. Entire species vanish without ceremony, their last individuals dying quietly in the cold and hunger, unnoticed by any who might mark their passing. It is not a single moment, but 1,000 small endings that together amount to the close of an era. The vast herds of plant-eaters that once thundered across floodplains are now only scattered remnants. Those that survive are smaller, leaner, and constantly on the move, their once mighty migrations reduced to desperate wanderings. Predators, without prey to sustain them, fall in equal measure. The giant hunters are gone, first their bodies demanding more than this new world can give. Smaller carnivores last a little longer, scavenging and turning to whatever they can catch, but eventually, even they begin to fade. In the oceans, the collapse is more severe. Without sunlight, the plankton blooms that once stained the waters green and blue have dwindled to almost nothing. Coral reefs bleach and crumble in the cold, acid-tinged seas. Entire lineages of marine reptiles vanish, their niches left empty. The great ammonites, once spiraling icons of the Mesozoic seas, disappear forever. Their shells now only a future fossil's promise. And yet, in the shadows and in the soil, life persists in ways both quiet and stubborn. Tiny mammals, furred, sharp-toothed, and endlessly resourceful, survive on seeds, insects, and the eggs of whatever reptiles remain. They tunnel deep, safe from the cold and the predators above. Amphibians in mud, crocodilians in sluggish rivers, and turtles, hidden in burrows, endure with the patience of creatures built for hardship. Even some birds cling to existence, their small bodies darting between pockets of surviving vegetation, feeding on whatever seeds remain. These birds, descendants of the dinosaurs themselves, carry within them the last echoes of that ancient dynasty. The earth itself feels like it is holding its breath. The winds carry less song, the forests stand thinner, and the coasts are barren. But in certain sheltered valleys, in the cracks of cliffs, and in the warmth of geothermal springs, pockets of green endure. Mosses, lichens, and hardy ferns grow where they can, patient builders of the soil that will one day feed forests again. Slowly, so slowly, that the survivors cannot sense it. The dust in the upper atmosphere begins to thin. The shroud that has dimmed the sun starts to fray. Light strengthens. Days grow slightly warmer. It is not enough to heal the world, not yet, but enough to spark the first fragile signs of renewal. Seeds germinate, where they once failed. The first flowers bloom in sheltered places, pale and small, but unmistakable. This is the turning point. The worst is over, though the scars will remain for millions of years. The great age that ended will not return. The creatures that ruled it are gone forever. But in their absence, new forms will rise. The small and the adaptable will inherit the empty niches, spreading into a world remade. Far in the future, the descendants of these survivors will look nothing like the world before. Mammals will grow larger. Birds will diversify into shapes and sizes unimagined. New predators will emerge. New forests will spread, and oceans will teem again with life. The forgotten age has ended, not with a final bang, but with a quiet persistence. Out of the ashes, a different earth will grow. Years pass, though in the memory of the earth, they are only seconds. The wounds of the catastrophe still show barren plains, where forests once grew, cliffs stripped bare, and rivers running shallow through empty valleys. But life is stubborn. With each season, the green spreads a little farther. Small plants push upward from the soil, their roots breaking apart the stone and leaving behind the beginnings of fertile earth. Moss carpets the damp places first, followed by ferns and hardy shrubs. In the warmest pockets of the world, young trees begin to take hold. They are not the towering giants of the age before, but slender and flexible, built for a world that can still turn harsh without warning. The animals that remain learn to live in the spaces the old giants left behind. Mammals, once confined to the underbrush, now explore open spaces, darting between patches of cover. Some grow more social, their survival depending not just on cunning, but on cooperation. Birds take to the skies, spreading seeds far beyond the places where their ancestors could have reached. Insects thrive among the new growth, their buzzing and clicking, a constant reminder that life, once begun, is hard to silence. In the oceans, recovery is slower. It will take centuries before the coral reefs return, and millennia before they regain their full glory. But even here, change begins. Algae blooms again in the shallows, feeding small fish that multiply quickly in the absence of their former predators. Over time, these fish will give rise to new hunters, new shoals, and new patterns in the food chain. The earth is not simply returning to what it was, it is becoming something new. The rules of the game have changed, and those who survive are the ones that can adapt to them. Giant size is no longer the surest path to dominant. Speed, intelligence, and versatility now carry more weight. This shift will shape everything that comes next, and above all, there is the sky. No longer choked by dust, it is once again blue, vast, and open. Clouds form in great slow-moving shapes, their shadows trailing over the land. Rain falls more often now, carrying with it the scent of growing things. The sunlight is warmer, softer, as if the earth itself is relieved to feel it again. This is still a fragile world, but the seeds of its future are firmly in place. From these survivors, entire new lineages will one day arise, creatures unlike anything the earth has yet seen. It is a reminder that every ending, no matter how final it feels, holds within it the beginning of something else. Millions of years pass, and the earth, patient as ever, begins to wear away the scars of the catastrophe. Forests stretch across continents once again, though their compositions are different. Conifers still dominate some regions, but flowering plants, descendants of the small pioneers that survived the darkness, begin to flourish. painting the world in vibrant colors. The rhythm of seasons returns, marked by the blossoming and falling of leaves, the migrations of creatures, and the patterns of rain and wind. The animals of this new age are different from their predecessors. Mammals, once small and secretive, now explore broader habitats. Some take to the trees, leaping between branches with agility. Others dominate open plains, grazing on the abundant vegetation. Their intelligence and adaptability allow them to exploit niches the giants of the past never needed to consider. Birds to rise in prominence. Descended from their dinosaur ancestors, they soar through the skies in great flocks, hunting insects, scavenging, and even venturing into habitats that had once been the domain of flying reptiles. Their feathers, colorful and varied, catch the sunlight in ways that hint at the same evolutionary creativity that once produced the crests and ornaments of dinosaurs. In the oceans, life slowly rebuilds. Coral reefs begin to expand, forming complex structures that provide shelter for fish and other marine life. Predators return, but they are smaller, more specialized, and agile. Sharks patrol the waters, fish schools dart in coordinated movements, and the first small whales begin their evolution, hinting at the dominance of mammals that will come much later. The Earth itself continues to shift. Tectonic plates drift, mountains rise, rivers carve new valleys, and seas expand and contract. Climate zones form, deserts appear, and polar regions develop their icy extremes. Each of these changes shapes the plants and animals that live there, selecting for traits that will define the next great evolutionary experiments. It is a world that remembers its past only in subtle ways. Fossils buried deep in rock layers, traces of ash from the Great Impact, and patterns of life that hint at ancient lineages. Yet life does not linger in memory. It pushes forward, adapting, experimenting, and thriving. The age of dinosaurs, once thought eternal, is gone. In its place, a new Earth begins, one in which the small and adaptable hold the advantage, and in which the seeds of future giants quietly lie beneath the soil, waiting for the right conditions to grow. And so, the forgotten age fades, leaving behind lessons in resilience, adaptation, and the inexorable rhythm of life and death. The Earth, ever patient, turns once more, carrying with it the promise of futures yet to unfold. As millions of years continue to unfold, the Earth becomes a quiet laboratory of evolution. The scars of the asteroid impact and the great extinction gradually fade, replaced by landscapes of green forests, wide plains, and intricate river systems. Small creatures, survivors of the chaos, spread into every available niche, each step of adaptation subtly reshaping the world. Among these survivors, some lineages begin to explore new ways of life. Tiny, agile reptiles climb trees, their claws and lightweight bodies allowing them to reach food previously inaccessible. Insects diversify in tandem, creating complex food webs that support these growing populations. The first small dinosaurs, lurly theropods, and sauropod to morphs appear as the forests recover, their slender forms well suited to this world of abundant but fragile plant life. The forests themselves are alive with color and motion. Flowering plants continue to expand, forming undergrowth that shelters small creatures while providing food for the earliest herbivorous dinosaurs. These newcomers are cautious and clever, hunting for seeds and leaves, avoiding larger predators, and gradually developing strategies for survival that will allow their descendants to dominate the world in the centuries to come. On the plains, new herbivorous dinosaurs begin to form the first loose herds. They are small compared to the giants that will later roam the earth, but their social behaviors hint at the complex interactions of future species. These herds travel together for protection, teaching the next generation how to forage, where to find water, and how to avoid danger. Predators, too, are evolving. Small theropods stalk the forests and edges of rivers, using speed and intelligence to catch prey. Feathers, initially for insulation, begin to serve for display, communication, and balance. These adaptations will lay the groundwork for the birds that will later dominate the skies. In the oceans, life continues its slow recovery. Fish multiply in abundance, crustaceans scuttle across the seabed, and the first recognizable marine reptiles return. Coral-like structures grow once more in shallow seas, offering shelter to countless species. Although the oceans are still a shadow of their former diversity, the patterns of life are returning, and with them comes stability. Mountains rise and rivers carve new paths. Climate zones begin to form in recognizable ways, creating deserts, wetlands, and temperate forests. Each new environment encourages experimentation. Creatures that can adapt flourish, while those that cannot gradually disappear. The earth is teaching life over and over that survival depends on flexibility, speed, and the ability to exploit new opportunities. Slowly, steadily, the stage is set for the classic dinosaurs, the massive sauropods that will sweep across plains, the horned and armored giants that will guard forests, and the apex predators whose size and power will awe future generations. What seems ordinary now, small, quick-footed reptile in a young forest will, in millions of years, evolve into creatures that dominate the imagination of humans, echoing the triumphs of a world once lost. The forgotten age may be fading from memory, but its legacy is alive in every fossil buried beneath the soil, in every lineage that survived, and in the rhythm of evolution that continues, patiently shaping the future. The earth is ready to begin the next chapter, and life, ever persistent, is ready to write it. The earth has fully healed from the scars of its ancient catastrophe. Forests stretch uninterrupted across continents, their canopy a patchwork of greens and yellows dotted with colorful flowering plants. Rivers wind lazily through floodplains, and shallow seas shimmer under the warm sun. Life hums quietly, in rhythm with the seasons, yet beneath this calm, evolution works tirelessly, shaping the creatures that will come to define an era. Small dinosaurs continue to diversify, some remaining agile and swift, others growing larger to exploit new ecological roles. From these beginnings, the first true sauropods, long-necked giants grazing on high foliage, merge their massive bodies, bending forests as they pass. Their presence transforms the landscape, opening paths in the undergrowth and creating spaces for smaller creatures to thrive. Predators adapt alongside them. Theropods grow taller, more powerful, with teeth designed to pierce and tear. Their senses sharpen, their intelligence increasing as hunting strategies become more coordinated. Feathers appear in various shapes and colors, glinting in sunlight, serving as signals to others of their species, or as insulation against cooler nights. On the plains, the first herds of ceratopsians begin to roam. Their frills are small but noticeable, hints of the elaborate displays that will dominate later generations. Armor-plated dinosaurs, too, move cautiously, their tails swinging like clubs for defense. These creatures show that evolution favors both strength and strategy. Some rely on size, others on agility, and still others on collective behavior. In the oceans, life flourishes anew. Fish schools dart through coral reefs that have begun to expand, providing shelter for young predators and prey alike. Marine reptiles, long absent in the aftermath of the Great Extinction, return in increasing diversity. Shallow waters teem with mollusks, crustaceans, and the first large predatory fish, all part of a web rebuilding itself carefully but surely. The skies are alive with motion. Birds, descendants of small theropods, now occupy the niches once held by pterosaurs. Their wings carry them over forests, lakes, and seas, calling to one another in melodies that echo faintly across valleys. Pterosaurs, though still present, are smaller and fewer, gradually yielding dominance of the skies to their feathered relatives. The climate is warm and steady, with periodic shifts that encourage adaptation. Seasons bring rain and sun in gentle cycles, fueling plant growth and sustaining herbivores. Volcanoes rumble occasionally, reminding the world that the Earth is still alive, still changing, but nothing so catastrophic as before occurs. The rhythms of life are both grand and intimate. A herd of sauropods moves slowly along a riverbank, each step displacing water and sediment. Smaller dinosaurs skitter in the undergrowth, feeding on plants or chasing insects. Birds flit overhead, their songs carrying through the forest. Predators stalk with patience, watching, waiting, and striking when opportunity arises. Every creature plays its part in a balance forged through millions of years of survival and adaptation. This is the era the world remembers. The forgotten age fades into deep layers of rock, its creatures preserved only in fossils and stories. But from its ashes rose the iconic dinosaurs, the giants, the horned, the armored, the swift, and the feathered, each a testament to survival, adaptation, and the patient rhythm of evolution. And so, the Earth settles into a calm, steady pulse, perfect for rest. Rivers flow, winds whisper through leaves, and the sun warms the land, reminding us that life, once lost, can always find a way to return in forms both familiar and extraordinary. The world hums with life in a rhythm that has been building for millions of years. Forests stretch endlessly, their canopies dappled with sunlight, rustling softly in the breeze. Rivers glide through the land, reflecting the sky in gentle ripples, while shallow seas shimmer like liquid glass. Life moves with a slow, mesmerizing cadence, each creature occupying its place in a complex web of survival. Each sound a note in the symphony of the world. In these forests and floodplains, dinosaurs flourish, sauropods, towering and majestic, graze among the tallest trees, their long necks swaying gently as they reach for leaves beyond the reach of any other herbivore. Beneath them, smaller dinosaurs dart between ferns and shrubs, agile and alert, taking advantage of the shadows the giants create. The ground trembles subtly with the steps of the largest herbivores, a quiet heartbeat beneath the forest floor. Ceratopsians roam in herds, their frills and horns catching sunlight as they move together across the plains. These herds communicate constantly, the low grunts and calls echoing over long distances, a testament to the bonds that ensure survival. Armor-plated ankylosaurs wander cautiously near water sources, their club-like tails swinging slowly as they forage, a living wall against the predators that stalk nearby. Predators, ever patient, weave through this abundance. Tyrannosaurs and their kin move with deliberate power, using both strength and cunning to catch prey. Smaller theropods, feathered and swift, flit through the underbrush, hunting insects, eggs, or young herbivores. Birds, descendants of these small hunters, soar above the canopy, their colors bright and their songs delicate, adding a melodic layer to the natural orchestra. In the oceans, life mirrors the complexity of the land. Coral reefs and underwater forests support countless species of fish, mollusks, and crustaceans. Marine reptiles glide gracefully through the water, hunting with precision, while schools of smaller fish move like shimmering clouds, their synchronized movements hypnotic in the calm seas. The waves lap gently at the coastlines, carrying life and nourishment to every corner of the marine world. Even the skies are alive. Pterosaurs, though smaller than their ancestors, wheel and glide over the forests and plains, their shadows fleeting across the land below. Birds call to one another in intricate patterns, signaling, warning, or simply sharing the joy of flight. The air vibrates softly with their wings, a whisper of motion above the stillness of the earth. The climate is warm but stable. Gentle rains nurture the forests, while seasonal shifts create predictable cycles of growth and rest. Daylight filters through the canopy in golden streams, illuminating the delicate details of flowers, leaves, and the creatures that live among them. Nights are cool and quiet, with the distant calls of nocturnal animals echoing softly, a lullaby for a world in perfect balance. This is the peak of dinosaur diversity, a world teeming with life, each species intricately connected to the others, each ecosystem functioning like a carefully tuned instrument. The forgotten age lies beneath, hidden in rock layers and fossils, but its legacy is alive in every movement, every breath, and every sound. Life has not only returned, it has flourished beyond imagination, and in this gentle, eternal rhythm, the earth invites us to rest. The rivers flow, the forests sway, the winds whisper, and the creatures, great and small, carry on their timeless dance. The world is full, alive, and at peace, a perfect backdrop for sleep, reflection, and dreams of a time when giants walked quietly through a green, breathing planet. The late Cretaceous world hums with a richness unseen in earlier times. Forests stretch from horizon to horizon, dense and layered, offering refuge and sustenance to countless species. Rivers meander slowly through floodplains, their banks dotted with flowers and ferns, while swamps shimmer in the sunlight, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and greenery. Every corner of the land is alive, every shadow hiding a story of survival. Across the plains, massive sauropods graze methodically, their long necks sweeping the treetops with careful precision. Herds move in slow, deliberate lines, each step pressing leaves and twigs into the soft ground. In their wake, smaller dinosaurs scurry, seeking fallen fruits, insects, or seeds exposed by the giant's movement. The forest floor is a mosaic of activity, subtle yet ceaseless, each life dependent on another in ways both obvious and hidden. Predators prowl with patience. Tyrannosaurs, enormous and powerful, move silently along river edges, sensing the vibrations of distant footsteps. Smaller theropods, feathered and fleet, navigate the undergrowth, hunting insects, eggs, and vulnerable juveniles. Even in the midst of abundance, survival demands cunning, speed, and alertness. Their calls, low and deliberate, echo through the forests and plains, a whispering reminder of the eternal hunt. Herbivores have developed diverse strategies to cope with the ever-present threat of predation. Ceratopsians form tight-knit herds, their horns and frills signaling both defense and communication. Ankylosaurs, armored and deliberate, patrol slowly through their territories, relying on their physical protection as much as their instincts. The interplay of predator and prey creates a rhythm, an invisible pulse that sustains the balance of life. In the skies, birds and pterosaurs coexist in a delicate dance. Feathered dinosaurs skim through the air in swift arcs, chasing insects or calling to one another, while pterosaurs glide silently above the treetops, scanning the land for opportunity. The wind carries their wings, their songs, and their calls across the forests, a soft chorus that blends seamlessly with the rustle of leaves and the flowing of rivers. The seas mirror the complexity of the land. Shallow waters teem with fish, crustaceans, and mollusks, while coral reefs form intricate labyrinths of life. Marine reptiles patrol the waters, hunting with grace, while schools of smaller fish shimmer like moving mosaics. Even in this abundance, survival is precise, each creature tuned to the rhythm of the oceans, each feeding, avoiding, or reproducing in perfect timing. Seasons flow gently. Rain nourishes the forests and plains, while dry periods test the endurance of both plants and animals. Daylight illuminates the land in golden waves, casting shadows that stretch and shrink with the sun. Nights are calm, with distant calls from nocturnal creatures, the whisper of wind through leaves, and the occasional splash of a river-welling animal. Life continues in its intricate, interconnected dance. Yet, beneath the surface of this thriving world, subtle signs hint at changes to come. Volcanic activity in distant regions sends ash faintly across the skies. Sea levels fluctuate. Small environmental shifts ripple through the ecosystems. Nothing is sudden, but the Earth itself is always in motion, and life must adapt or vanish. The late Cretaceous is a world at its peak, diverse, abundant, and mesmerizing. It is a planet alive in every sense, each organism carrying within it the legacy of survival from the forgotten age. And as the sun sets slowly over the horizon, casting a warm glow across forests and plains, the world settles into a quiet rhythm, perfect for listening, reflecting, and drifting into sleep. The late Cretaceous world continues in its rhythm, a tapestry of forests, plains, and seas teeming with life. Rivers glide quietly through floodplains, the gentle lapping of water providing a soft soundtrack to the movements of creatures along their banks. Forest canopies sway lightly in the wind, and the distant calls of birds and dinosaurs mingle in a muted symphony. Life seems steady, predictable, and eternal. Yet subtle changes ripple through the land. Volcanic eruptions in faraway regions send faint plumes of ash into the sky. Most are small, barely noticed by the creatures of the forests, yet their particles drift over plains and rivers, dimming sunlight just enough to be sensed by plants and small animals. Temperatures fluctuate slightly, seasons shifting with a quiet irregularity that the land has not felt for millions of years. Herbivores notice the differences in their food. Leaves are slightly less abundant, ferns thinner, and young shoots fewer than before. Herds of ceratopsians move farther and longer to find sustenance, their low calls carrying over distances, communicating both alertness and mild anxiety. Sauropods, massive and slow, shift grazing patterns, avoiding areas where undergrowth seems weaker, their instincts sensing change in ways subtle and ancient. Predators, too, sense something new. While food is still plentiful, the behaviors of prey begin to shift. Herds linger longer near rivers, flee earlier from open plains, and scatter with less predictable patterns. The hunting strategies of large theropods are tested, and smaller theropods adapt quickly, learning new tactics and taking advantage of unexpected gaps in the landscape. The rhythm of survival begins to alter, almost imperceptibly, like a soft drumbeat changing its tempo. In the oceans, currents shift gently. Plankton blooms are slightly delayed, affecting the small fish that feed on them. Predatory marine reptiles notice fewer shoals in the usual feeding grounds, prompting longer migrations and careful observation. Coral reefs remain vibrant, but show small areas of bleaching or slowed growth, signs that even the water itself carries hints of subtle stress. Even the sky carries its messages. Feathered dinosaurs and birds detect minute changes in wind patterns and cloud cover. Migrations become slightly adjusted, nests built in more sheltered areas, and calls altered to suit quieter or more obscured environments. The delicate balance of predator and prey, of hunter and forager, begins to feel the first tremors of a world in transition. Despite all these small shifts, life continues with calm persistence. Every creature moves, feeds, reproduces, and rests in its measured rhythm. Days are warm, nights cool, and the sun rises and sets with familiar grace. To an observer, nothing seems wrong, yet the earth is already laying the groundwork for a transformation that will unfold over thousands of years, a change that will silently reshape ecosystems and erase species that had ruled for millions of years. The late Cretaceous, abundant and vibrant, hums quietly with life, yet beneath its beauty, the first whispers of an ending stir. It is subtle, gentle, and almost imperceptible, perfect for drifting into thought, reflection, and sleep. The world remains alive, for now, carrying its creatures forward in a rhythm both steady and fragile. Time moves with a quiet patience, the earth unfolding in its ancient rhythm. Forests sway gently under the warm sun, rivers glide lazily across floodplains, and the seas glimmer with the reflected light of morning. The world is still teeming with life, each creature carrying on in its daily pattern of feeding, resting, and moving through familiar landscapes. Yet subtle signs of change begin to appear, almost imperceptible to the creatures themselves. Volcanic activity grows slightly more frequent in distant regions, sending faint ash clouds that drift silently across continents. Sunlight filters through these particles with a dimmer glow, making shadows longer and colors softer, as if the earth is sighing beneath the weight of unseen forces. Plant life feels the shift first. Leaves are slightly thinner, flowers bloom later, and some seedlings fail to take root. Forests, still lush, begin to show hints of uneven growth, gaps where once thick underbrush had flourished, trees that are smaller than their predecessors, and ferns curling under subtle stresses. Herbivorous dinosaurs notice these changes, adjusting their grazing routes, moving farther and longer in search of sufficient nutrition. Smaller predators, more adaptable, take advantage of these shifts, experimenting with new tactics and foraging behaviors. Even the smallest creatures, the shrew-sized mammals, in the oceans, currents, and tides carry the first hints of imbalance. Plankton blooms are slightly delayed, causing small disruptions in the feeding patterns of fish and the marine reptiles that depend on them. Coral reefs, though still resilient, show minor patches of slowed growth and bleaching, a silent warning of the delicate balance being tested. Marine life adapts, as it always has, but the change is noted in the rhythm of reproduction, migration, and predation. The sky reflects these shifts. Birds and flying dinosaurs alter their flight patterns and nesting behaviors, sensing subtle changes in wind, cloud cover, and temperature. Even the smallest insects respond, emerging earlier or later than usual, shifting, feeding, and breeding in quiet adaptation to the unseen pressures in their environment. Despite these subtle disturbances, life continues its measured dance. Dinosaurs, mammals, reptiles, birds, and marine creatures all persist in their routines. Days remain warm, nights cool, and the sun rises and sets with familiar grace, lulling the land and its inhabitants into a sense of continuity. And yet, beneath this seeming calm, the earth is preparing for a profound change. Forces unseen and distant are already moving toward a point of impact, a single event that will ripple through every forest, river, and ocean. Almost imperceptible shift that sets the stage for the final chapter of the dinosaurs' long dominion. The world continues in its familiar rhythm, yet small signs begin to ripple through the landscapes, barely noticeable at first. Forests sway in winds that seem slightly warmer or cooler than usual. Rivers, flowing steadily through valleys, show hints of unusual turbulence, though no creature notices. Insects emerge and retreat with altered timing, a subtle shift in the pulse of life. The skies are calm, the sun rising and setting with golden warmth. Yet a faint haze drifts along the horizon from distant volcanic activity. Birds and feathered dinosaurs alter their flight patterns slightly, gliding farther or landing sooner, responding instinctively to currents in the air. Even the largest sauropods move with more caution, their slow steps measuring the land beneath them with careful awareness. In the oceans, currents carry small, almost imperceptible changes. Plankton blooms are slightly delayed in some regions, small fish scatter in irregular patterns, and marine reptiles shift hunting grounds ever so subtly. Life continues, persistent and patient, unaware that unseen forces are approaching from beyond the sky. Predators on land sense differences too. Tyrannosaurs and other hunters find their prey behaving unpredictably. Herds of herbivores are slightly more restless, moving longer distances each day. Smaller theropods explore new hunting strategies, adapting instinctively to minor shifts in behavior of their quarry. Even the smallest mammals, usually hidden and cautious, emerge at unusual hours, seeking food in response to subtle environmental changes. Plants, the silent witnesses to these shifts, respond to the dimming of the sun caused by drifting ash and faint atmospheric changes. Leaves grow more slowly, ferns curl slightly, and flowering plants delay their blossoms. The forest floor, once thick and abundant, shows tiny gaps where seedlings fail to root. These are barely noticed by the animals, yet they represent the first small cracks in the delicate balance that sustains life. As days pass, these subtle shifts grow more pronounced. The air feels heavier. Winds carry strange smells, sulfur and ash, though most creatures cannot comprehend their source. The The rivers and streams, usually predictable in flow, show hints of unusual sediment, stirring curiosity in the keenest-eyed predators. Birds and pterosaurs circle higher and longer, their calls slightly louder, perhaps signaling unease to each other. In the quiet of night, the world seems almost unchanged. The stars shine over forests, plains, and oceans. Moonlight glints off rivers, reflecting silhouettes of dinosaurs, mammals, and reptiles alike. The world continues its dance, calm and mesmerizing, each creature moving in its habitual rhythm, completely unaware that everything is about to change. And in this quiet, peaceful prelude, the earth holds its breath. Life moves with serene continuity, yet a silent force hurtles toward it. For now, though, the world remains gentle, alive, and perfect for drifting into reflection, imagination, and sleep. The sky, once clear and steady, begins to shimmer with a faint, strange light. At first, it is barely noticeable, a glimmer on the horizon, like a distant sunrise stretched across the day. Birds and feathered dinosaurs pause mid-flight, glancing toward the glow with instinctive curiosity. Small mammals scurry for cover, sensing something unusual, while the larger dinosaurs continue slowly, yet responding subtly to the shift in light and air. Across the land, the glow intensifies, casting long shadows over the forest floor. Trees bend gently in the wind, their leaves shimmering as if aware of an invisible presence. The rivers ripple slightly, reflections catching the light in new, shimmering patterns. Even the smallest ripples seem to pulse in time with the approaching force, as if the earth itself is preparing to receive something extraordinary. The oceans, vast and patient, begin to react subtly. Waves move with a slightly different rhythm, currents shifting quietly. Schools of fish scatter in irregular patterns, moving instinctively as marine reptiles glide toward deeper, calmer waters. The surface glows faintly with reflected light, catching the attention of birds and flying dinosaurs overhead. There is no panic, only the gentle anticipation that comes with sensing an unusual event in nature's rhythm. On land, the first warmth of distant fire and heat touches the earth. The air grows heavier, the breeze carrying a faint tempest of minerals and warmth, almost like a distant storm, but different, almost otherworldly. Predators pause in their hunts, sniffing the wind, aware of subtle shifts. Herbivores stop grazing, ears twitching, eyes scanning horizons. Small mammals and reptiles burrow a little deeper, responding to an ancient, instinctive signal that something is changing. The forests themselves seem to hold their breath. Rivers ripple with reflection, glinting as if the surface of the world itself is bending. Even the faintest sounds, the whisper of leaves, the ripple of water, the rustle of creatures in the undergrowths, seem amplified in the quiet of anticipation. This is the calm before the full impact. The earth moves slowly, rhythmically, and every living thing senses the subtle shift, though none can understand it fully. Light, wind, and air carry hints of what is to come. The planet is alive in its own way, observing the approach, responding quietly, and preparing to cradle life through the next chapter. And as the glow stretches across the sky, life continues in its gentle, persistent rhythms. Birds call softly to one another, rivers flow steadily, and the forests sway in time with the wind. The world is alive, calm, and mesmerizing, ready for the moment when change will arrive, yet still inviting rest, reflection, and sleep. The sky glows brighter now, the distant shimmer becoming a streak of brilliance stretching across the horizon. It is both beautiful and strange, a light unlike any sunrise or sunset. Birds pause mid-flight, their wings frozen for a heartbeat, while mammals and reptiles huddle quietly, instinctively seeking shelter. The forests sway gently, as if sensing a subtle vibration in the air. A warm, dry gust rolls across the land, carrying with it a faint mineral scent. The rivers ripple with unusual energy, and the reflections of trees and mountains waver on the water's surface. Shadows stretch long and distorted, cast by the sudden intensity of light overhead. Creatures of all sizes sense the shift not in fear, but in heightened awareness, their instincts attuned to changes that the mind cannot yet comprehend. In the plains, herds of herbivores pause mid-step. Life moves cautiously, rhythmically, in tune with the strange new pattern in the air. The oceans, vast and patient, begin to shimmer with reflected light. Schools of fish scatter in slow, deliberate patterns. Marine reptiles glide deeper, following instinctual cues, while waves ripple with unusual glints as the sunlight tanned. The approaching energy interacts with the water. Even the faintest movement of tides seems amplified, a quiet reminder of the subtle forces shaping the planet. A warmth spreads gently across the earth. Not yet overwhelming, it tinges the air and the land with heat, causing leaves to tremble, rivers to steam slightly in quiet eddies, and animals to pause in measured observation. The sky is a canvas of color and light, painting shadows across forests, plains, and water alike. The earth itself seems to exhale, bracing for the next phase, while the creatures within it respond in gentle, instinctive rhythms. Evening approaches slowly, but the light does not fade in the usual way. Instead, it bends, stretches, and shimmers in strange hues. The winds carry soft whispers through the trees. Leaves rustle quietly. Birds call softly, as if to comfort one another, and the nocturnal creatures of the night emerge cautiously, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. This is the moment when the asteroid touches the Earth, not in violence, but in quiet, immense presence. Life senses it. The Earth, calm and enduring, absorbs the approaching change. Rivers continue to flow, winds continue to whisper, and forests sway with the gentlest motions. Life persists, serene, rhythmic, and prepared, ready to face the first waves of transformation, while the planet holds it all in a quiet, almost meditative balance. The sky darkens gradually, not with sudden violence, but with a quiet, growing veil. Dust and fine particles from distant eruptions and the approaching impact drift across the land, softening the sunlight into muted gold and amber. Shadows stretch in unusual directions, creating patterns across forests, plains, and rivers, as if the world itself has shifted slightly in perspective. A gentle warmth hangs in the air. It is not burning, but pervasive, a subtle press of heat that brushes against the leaves, ripples across the water, and caresses the skin of every creature. Forests sway with the rhythm of the wind, leaves trembling softly in response. Rivers shimmer differently, their surfaces catching the faint light and reflecting it in slow, rippling mosaics. Life responds instinctively, each creature sensing the shift in the atmosphere with a heightened awareness. Herbivores pause in their routines. Sauropods lift massive heads slowly, nostrils flaring as they sense changes in the air. Ceratopsians shift within their herds, communicating with soft calls. Every movement is deliberate, calm, and measured, as though the world has asked for a slower rhythm. The oceans, vast and patient, reflect the sky's muted glow. Currents ripple quietly, and schools of fish move with unusual patterns, glinting in the softened light. Marine reptiles glide deeper, sensing changes in water temperature and clarity, adjusting their movements with gentle precision. Even the waves along distant shores roll more deliberately, as though the seas themselves are noticing the shift. The forest canopy, usually vibrant and luminous, takes on a muted golden-brown hue. Flowers close slightly, ferns curl delicately, and the forest floor is dappled with unusual shadow patterns. Birds adjust their flight paths, calling softly to each other, while smaller animals pause and watch, sensing a rhythm that is changing imperceptibly but inevitably. The air carries a subtle weight, scented faintly with minerals, ash, and warmth. It is almost imperceptible, yet every creature notices it in instinctive ways. The light softens further, rivers continue their steady flow, and forests sway gently with the wind. Though changes are beginning, life maintains a calm persistence, moving with measured grace. The earth absorbs the initial waves of transformation with patience, preparing every creature for the slow unfolding of what is to come, while the world itself remains a perfect backdrop for reflection, wonder, and sleep. The sky grows steadily dimmer, a soft, filtered twilight stretching across continents. Sunlight, once golden and full, now reaches the land in muted tones of amber and copper, casting long, delicate shadows across forests, rivers, and plains. Leaves shimmer softly under the subdued light, swaying gently in the warm, still air. Everything feels slower, calmer, as though the world itself is adjusting its rhythm to a new, quiet pulse. A gentle warmth lingers in the air, touching every creature without discomfort. Forests breathe in the stillness, leaves trembling slightly as a soft wind passes through. Rivers ripple lazily, reflecting the altered light in shifting patterns, while the surface of the oceans glints faintly with the subtle glow from above. The planet seems to move in a slower cadence, each motion deliberate and measured, a natural lullaby for the creatures below. Herbivorous dinosaurs adjust their routines gradually. Even the tiniest mammals and reptiles move with care, burrowing slightly deeper or seeking shaded areas, following instincts attuned to subtle shifts in temperature, light, and air. Predators, attuned to these changes, move thoughtfully. Large theropods patrol familiar hunting grounds with patient precision. Smaller carnivores adapt their foraging strategies, observing patterns in the movements of insects, birds, and young herbivores. There is no panic, only a heightened attentiveness, a quiet dance of survival, adjusted to a world subtly transformed. In the oceans, currents flow with gentle irregularity. Schools of fish ripple through the water in slow, synchronized arcs. Marine reptiles glide with fluid grace, diving deeper or moving closer to the surface in response to shifts in temperature and clarity. Coral reefs, though still standing, reflect the soft changes above them. Muted light, warmer waters, and an altered rhythm of plankton and small creatures. The seas themselves seem to breathe, carrying the signs of the Earth's transformation silently across miles of water. Even the sky carries its whispers of change. Birds and flying dinosaurs glide more cautiously, their wings cutting the air with measured care. Calls echo softly across the forests and plains, a quiet reassurance among kin. Clouds drift lazily, sometimes tinged with ash or dust from distant eruptions, softening the sunlight into gentle hues that touch every leaf, river, and creature with a calm, reflective glow. The forests and plains, though altered, remain alive and mesmerizing. Flowers close and open in new rhythms, ferns curl slightly, and the undergrowth appears subtly thinner, yet rich with life. Rivers continue their steady courses, hills and mountains bask in muted light, and the gentle sounds of wind, water, and wings create a harmonious, meditative cadence. This is a world in transition, yet it is serene, patient, and enduring. Life moves with careful persistence, sensing the changes yet continuing its quiet, deliberate dance. The earth, ever patient, absorbs the first waves of transformation, preparing every creature for the unfolding chapters of its long history, while offering a gentle, hypnotic rhythm perfect for reflection, contemplation, and sleep. The sky grows heavier with dust, filtering sunlight into soft, muted tones. Golds and ambers give way to deeper oranges and gentle reds, casting long, fluid shadows across forests, rivers, and plains. Leaves sway lazily in the still, warm air, reflecting faint glimmers of light that shimmer and fade with each passing moment. The earth moves slowly now, as though taking a deep, measured breath. Temperatures begin to shift subtly. The warmth of the day lingers, yet cooler breezes creep along riverbanks and across open plains. Herbivores pause longer to feed, lifting massive heads to survey their surroundings as shadows stretch unnaturally across the land. Ceratopsians and ankylosaurs move more deliberately, their slow steps stirring leaves and dust, blending into the muted tones of the altered landscape. Predators sense the shift as well. Theropods, once guided by familiar rhythms, now adjust their patterns, moving with careful patience. Smaller hunters explore new spaces between trees and rocks, watching prey that behaves slightly differently, responding instinctively to the soft changes in air, light, and temperature. Even the tiniest mammals and reptiles shift their routines, emerging for food at adjusted hours or retreating deeper into burrows when the light changes unexpectedly. Rivers, flowing steadily for millions of years, ripple differently. Water sparkles faintly under the muted light, moving more slowly across pebbles and sediment. Small fish navigate the current with careful precision, while amphibians and insects adjust their patterns along the banks. The reflective surfaces of lakes and streams catch the filtered sky, turning familiar waters into a calm, hypnotic mirror of the changing world. In the oceans, currents flow gently, yet with subtle irregularity. Marine reptiles glide gracefully, sensing the altered temperature and clarity of water. Coral structures, resilient but sensitive, appear softer in the dimming light, while schools of small fish move in slow, deliberate arcs, glinting faintly as if carrying tiny fragments of the muted sky within them. Waves lap softly along shores, producing a rhythm that matches the slower heartbeat of the earth. The forests breathe in the shifting light. Ferns curl gently, flowers remain partially closed, and the forest floor takes on a calm, shadowed richness. Birds and flying dinosaurs glide with patient awareness, their calls soft and sparse, echoing through canopies now muted in color. Even the smallest movements, the rustle of leaves, the flutter of insect wings, the gentle splash of water, resonate as part of the quiet symphony of adaptation and survival. This is a world adjusting, dimming, and cooling gently yet persistently. Life moves with quiet patience, each creature responding instinctively to the changes, maintaining its rhythm within a subtly altered environment. The earth absorbs these shifts gracefully, creating a landscape both strange and mesmerizing, perfect for reflection, meditation, and sleep. The late Cretaceous, once bright and vibrant, now drifts into a slower, calmer tempo. Shadows lengthen, light softens, rivers and oceans flow with deliberate grace. Life continues, resilient and observant, ready to endure whatever comes next, while the world itself whispers a lullaby of time, persistence, and quiet wonder. The light continues to fade, softened by drifting clouds of dust and ash that now hang steadily across the sky. What was once a golden, warm glow becomes muted and copper-toned, then deepens further into dusky reds and soft browns. Shadows stretch long across forests, rivers, and plains, moving with the gentle rhythm of the slow, quiet wind. The world seems to breathe more deliberately, as if holding itself in careful anticipation. Temperatures dip gradually. Warmth lingers near the surface, but cooler currents move through valleys and along rivers. Herbivorous dinosaurs pause their grazing, lifting massive heads to scan the muted landscape. Ceratopsians nudge each other softly, communicating through subtle calls, while sauropods shift their weight and glance at the horizon, their long necks tracing the filtered light as if measuring the passage of time. Predators adjust their movements in kind. Theropods move with patient, measured precision, watching carefully for prey that behaves differently in the dim light. Smaller hunters adapt instinctively, exploring shaded spaces between trees and rocks. Even the tiniest mammals, reptiles, and insects alter routines, subtly burrowing deeper, emerging later, or pausing in motion as the world itself slows around them. Rivers, normally lively with ripples and reflections, now flow with a calm, deliberate grace. Water mirrors the muted sky above, catching the faint, coppery glow of filtered sunlight. Fish move in gentle arcs, glinting faintly as they navigate the slower currents. Amphibians linger along the banks, and the soft splash of water echoes quietly across floodplains. Life adjusts its rhythm to match the deliberate tempo of the land. In the oceans, currents become smoother, more measured. Marine reptiles glide through dim waters, moving in sync with subtle changes in temperature and clarity. Coral reefs appear shadowed, yet still resilient, and schools of small fish follow slow, patterned paths, as if the water itself has instructed them to move carefully. Waves lap gently along distant shores, a slow heartbeat echoing the calm of a world adjusting to change. Forests and undergrowth take on a muted, meditative quality. Leaves tremble slightly in the gentle wind, ferns curl delicately, and flowers remain mostly closed, conserving energy in the softened light. Birds and flying dinosaurs glide through the sky, wings slicing the air with quiet purpose. Their calls are sparse, echoing softly across treetops and riverbanks, blending into the subtle, constant murmur of life adapting to slower, cooler days. The earth itself seems to have entered a meditative rhythm. Light, air, and temperature move in sync with the creatures that inhabit it. Life persists, quiet and deliberate, responding to changes with instinctive awareness. Forests, rivers, plains, and seas all maintain a delicate, mesmerizing cadence, perfect for reflection, contemplation, and sleep. The late Cretaceous, once vibrant and radiant, now flows in softer, slower patterns. Shadows lengthen and deepen, rivers meander quietly, and every creature moves with gentle care. Life endures in the hush of the dimmed world, adapting patiently to changes beyond comprehension, while the earth itself hums a calming, eternal lullaby. The light dims further, softened by the thickening veil of dust and ash that drifts across continents. What remains of sunlight filters through in muted reddish-gold streaks, painting forests, plains, and rivers with gentle, ethereal hues. Shadows stretch longer and sway with the slow, whispering wind. The world moves deliberately, as if each tree, river, and creature has slowed its rhythm to match the tempo of the changing sky. Temperatures continue to drop, imperceptibly at first, then enough for the creatures to sense. Herbivorous dinosaurs linger longer over each bite, savoring the foliage as leaves become less abundant. Sauropods stretch their necks slowly toward the canopy, chewing deliberately, while surveying their ceratopsians. Ceratopsians huddle slightly closer within their herds, communicating with soft calls that ripple through the quietened forests. Predators, to adapt gently. Theropods prowl in patient arcs, adjusting their hunting routes as prey movements shift with the dimming light. Smaller carnivores explore shaded pockets, moving carefully to conserve energy, while tiny mammals, reptiles, and insects emerge only when necessary, sensing the altered balance of warmth, light, and shadow. Every movement is measured, deliberate, and calm. Rivers flow more slowly, reflecting the muted sky above. The surfaces glint faintly, catching what little filtered light remains, while fish swim in unhurried arcs. Amphibians cling to damp areas along banks, and insects move more cautiously, their tiny wings stirring the quiet air. The rhythmic flow of water mirrors the steady, gentle adjustments of all life around it. Oceans, too, respond to the changes above. Currents glide more smoothly, carrying subtle warmth in slow, even layers. Marine reptiles navigate deeper waters, following instincts honed over millions of years, while schools of fish scatter carefully in unhurried formations. Coral reefs, bathed in the softened glow, retain their intricate beauty, muted yet persistent. Waves lap at shores with a deliberate, hypnotic pulse echoing the quiet heartbeat of the planet. The forests feel slower, softer. Leaves and ferns tremble lightly in the subdued wind. Flowers remain mostly closed, conserving energy. Birds and flying dinosaurs glide cautiously above wings, slicing the air in precise arcs. Their calls, sparse and melodic, mingle with the rustle of leaves, the ripple of rivers, and the faint hum of insects. Nature's sounds form a gentle, calming rhythm, inviting reflection and quiet thought. Life continues, calm and resilient. Every creature giant, or tiny land-dwelling, or aquatic moves with careful attention to the world around it. Forests, plains, rivers, and seas maintain a slow, deliberate cadence, adapting quietly to the altered light, temperature, and air. The earth absorbs the changes gracefully, sustaining life in a mesmerizing, enduring pattern. The late Cretaceous now flows in slower, dreamlike rhythms. Shadows stretch and deepen, rivers meander tranquilly, and animals move with deliberate care. The world is both familiar and transformed, alive yet subdued, offering a gentle lullaby to all who observe it. In this quiet, dimmed, and cooling environment, life persists, serene, patient, and perfectly attuned to the calm, enduring pulse of the earth. The sky darkens further, a soft, persistent haze stretching across continents. Sunlight no longer reaches the land in full brightness, but instead filters through dust and ash in muted shades of deep amber and soft copper. Shadows linger longer than before, stretching slowly across forests, rivers, and plains. The world seems to move in slow motion, as though time itself has adjusted to a quieter, more measured pace. Temperatures drop gradually, a subtle chill settling over the land. Warmth remains faintly in sheltered areas, but exposed plains and riversides feel cooler, prompting herbivores to linger under the canopy of forests or near protective hills. Sauropods pause longer between bites, their massive heads tracing the filtered light as they chew carefully. Ceratopsians huddle more closely, communicating with soft murmurs, while ankylosaurs shift gently, conserving energy and moving with deliberate care. Predators respond to these changes in kind. Large theropods patrol familiar territories slowly, sensing prey movements altered by the dimming light and cooler temperatures. Smaller carnivores explore new paths cautiously, testing shaded undergrowth and quiet clearings. Tiny mammals, reptiles, and insects emerge only when necessary, their behaviors guided by instinct rather than observation, conserving energy and adjusting to the new rhythms of life. Rivers and streams glide with gentle precision. Water mirrors the muted sky, catching faint glimmers of the filtered sunlight. Fish swim in measured patterns, while amphibians linger along banks, moving deliberately. Insects stir sparingly along the edges of rivers, their tiny wings brushing the still, cool air. Even the soft, rhythmic ripple of water seems amplified, as though echoing the slower heartbeat of the earth itself. Oceans mirror the quietude above. Currents glide evenly, carrying layers of subtle warmth through the water. Marine reptiles move with smooth grace, navigating deeper waters where temperatures are more stable. Schools of small fish follow slow, deliberate formations, shimmering faintly in the dimmed light. Coral reefs, though shadowed, maintain intricate structures, resilient and quietly thriving beneath the softened glow. Waves lap at distant shores with a hypnotic, steady rhythm, a gentle pulse reflecting the calm endurance of the planet. Forests sway in the subdued wind, leaves flutter softly, ferns curl gently, and flowers remain closed or partially closed, conserving energy. Birds and flying dinosaurs glide carefully overhead, their wings cutting the cool, still air in patient arcs. Their calls echo sparsely, a delicate melody amidst the rustle of leaves, ripples of rivers, and faint hum of insects. The soundscape forms a quiet symphony, inviting reflection, calm thought, and sleep. Life persists, steady and patient. Every creature, from the largest sauropod to the smallest insect, moves in measured response to the altered light, temperature, and air. Forests, plains, rivers, and seas maintain a deliberate cadence, each ecosystem adapting quietly to the new conditions. The earth, enduring and resilient, absorbs these subtle transformations gracefully, sustaining life in a mesmerizing, slow rhythm. The late Cretaceous world drifts through long, dim days and cooler nights. Shadows stretch and deepen, rivers flow lazily, and animals continue in quiet, deliberate patterns. The land and seas are alive, yet subdued, a tranquil and enduring reflection of nature's ability to adjust. In this calm, muted, and slowly cooling world, life remains resilient, moving with care, and the earth hums a quiet lullaby, perfect for reflection, meditation, and sleep. Time stretches slowly across the muted, dimmed world. The sky remains a soft haze of amber, copper, and deep reds, sunlight filtered and gentle, casting long, fluid shadows across forests, rivers, and plains. Temperatures have dropped, yet life continues, adapting quietly and patiently to the slower, softer rhythms of a changing earth. Herbivorous dinosaurs graze with deliberate care. Leaves are fewer and slightly smaller, yet sauropods reach patiently toward the canopy, chewing methodically while observing their topsians, ceratopsians, and ankylosaurs huddle calmly within their herds, communicating with soft calls that ripple through quiet forests. Smaller mammals and reptiles move cautiously, conserving energy, emerging only when necessary, guided by instinct and the altered patterns of light, wind, and warmth. Predators, to adjust seamlessly to the changing landscape. Large theropods patrol slowly, stalking prey that moves differently than before, following instinctual cues rather than habitual paths. Smaller hunters explore shaded pockets and quiet clearings, adapting to the slower, dimmed tempo of life. Every movement, every pause is measured, a reflection of the calm endurance of creatures attuned to subtle environmental shifts. Rivers flow with unhurried precision. Water mirrors the soft, filtered sky, glinting faintly in slow, shifting patterns. Fish move in gentle arcs, amphibians linger along the banks, and insects stir quietly, all following the rhythm of life, slowed but undisturbed. The oceans, too, carry this gentle pulse. Currents glide with subtle grace, marine reptiles navigate carefully, and schools of fish follow delicate, measured paths through shadowed waters. Waves lap softly along shores, a quiet heartbeat echoing across continents. Forests breathe in the muted light. Leaves and ferns tremble gently. Flowers remain closed or partially open, conserving energy. Birds and flying dinosaurs glide overhead, wings slicing the still air with patience and precision. Their calls are soft, spaced, and melodic, merging with the gentle rustle of leaves, the quiet ripple of rivers, and the faint hum of insects. Nature's soundscape becomes a tranquil symphony, a lullaby composed by the world itself. The earth, though changed, endures. Ecosystems adapt, species persist, and life flows in deliberate, mesmerizing rhythms. Creatures respond instinctively to the altered light, temperature, and atmosphere, demonstrating resilience beyond comprehension. Forests, rivers, plains, and oceans sustain life in harmony with the slower, dimmer world, creating a meditative cadence that carries across every corner of the planet. And so, the late Cretaceous, once bright, vibrant, and unshakable, now moves through softer days and cooler nights. Shadows stretch and lengthen, rivers and oceans flow with gentle grace, and life continues with calm determination. The world, altered yet enduring, hums a quiet, eternal lullaby, a perfect, serene backdrop for reflection, imagination, and sleep. In this final chapter, the story of the forgotten age draws to a peaceful close. Life adapts, the earth persists, and the gentle rhythm of the planet carries forward, a timeless meditation on resilience, harmony, and the quiet beauty of existence, long before humans would ever walk its lands. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the forgotten age of Earth. From quiet forests to ancient oceans, we've explored a world long before the dinosaurs. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drift into more mysteries with us. Sweet dreams.